Good evening, everybody. We are back for another week of streaming, and I am. Oh my
So th-
goodness. Um, I'm actually a little. I'll tell you a little bit about species creation and how I feel about it lately. But before I do that, I want to just make sure I've got my encoding settings, which I do, and yeah, everything's set up. So I am now ready to jump into the game. So for those of you who haven't watched me play Stellaris before, um, it's normally a new DLC. I actually kind of went out of my way to um, avoid an overly long campaign after we kind of got clobbered as the Black Codex. Um, but it went too far in the other direction. I made this like nightmare species where I was kind of hoping I would be beaten, and and it the opposite happened. Actually, let's see if I can show you before we go too far into the. Let's see if before we go too far into the new the new playthrough. Let's see if I can show you what happened at the end of the other one I did. So Stellaris 3.1 Lem, greetings. The custodians have arrived, shaping your. So we have had this patch before, but let's read it out, and I'll explain the context in a minute. Shaping your empire has become more freeform than ever as selectable tradition trees have been added to the game. This means that you can select the traditions you wish to pursue throughout the game, choosing from the already existing ones or some of the newly added traditions that also arrive with this update. Several origins and civics, like the Shattered Ring and the Necrophage, have been rebalanced to bring them more in line with each other or unlock combinations that were not allowed before, such as Necrophage hive minds. With this patch, we have added new content to several existing DLCs, particularly the Plantoids and Humanoid species packs, with a new origin and several new civics and species traits. In addition, we have included many bug fixes and smaller improvements that you can find detailed in our patch notes. Save games from previous versions may not be compatible with version 3.1 if you wish to continue your old save version 3.0.4. Follow the forum link below. Now, we actually got pretty lucky. We were early on enough with the Lem update. For those of you not familiar with Lem, this would be probably the science fiction author best known because his work was adapted into two films. One, probably the more famous of the two, is Andrei Tarkovsky's Stellaris, which I think, hey, cool facts. How you doing? Are you thinking about, or is this like wondering what I'm up to? I was gonna talk about that a little bit, but we'll jump into that. Good to see you. Um, but yeah, there was a remake. I don't want to say an American remake because it was not made during the Cold War. I think the argument was that Tarkovsky's Stellaris was supposed to be like the Soviet response to 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think they're very different films. I quite like Tarkovsky's work, but it's definitely Stellaris can be a bit much if you're not into sort of slower moving foreign films. But the more recent one, starring George Clooney, was directed, edited, and photographed by Steven Soderbergh, and it was produced under Lightstorm Entertainment, which is James Cameron's company. And I thought it was a sorely overlooked movie. I actually thought that it was not bad, and I know Stanislaw Lem was kind of critical of it. I think he'd seen a trailer and was like, the movie's not Love in Outer Space. Like, stop making it that. But, I think it was kind of like one of those grudging approvals, which is like, look, it's not really my book, but they definitely paid attention when they were adapting it. Is kind of, I think, what the final conclusion on it was. Anyways. One thing that has been kind of nice about Stellaris is that with all of the different patch notes, you get to learn a thing or two about different science fiction authors. And there's been quite a few patches now, so quite a few different names to pop up. And now's maybe not a bad time for me to mention that I am playing a key of Nemesis along with a lot of other DLC, which was given to me by the developer, Paradox Entertainment. or sorry, Paradox Interactive, and the developers Paradox Development Studio. I'm obviously very grateful for that, but it is always good to disclose right off the top. So all of the DLC that I will be playing, with the exception of the Plantoids and Humanoid species packs, are ones that I've been given specifically for streaming purposes. So if you're looking for recommendations in that, I am definitely a big fan of Stellaris, but do keep in mind that there is sort of that interest there. And I know it was actually a little hard to kind of reach out and get keys, so particularly with Nemesis, I was sort of preparing not to stream it, and someone really nice kind of got in touch, sort of understood the situation, and have allowed me to continue displaying the the game that I enjoy so much. So anyways, let's just take a quick look. I'm guessing here that yeah, I suspect we will not be able to see how things actually ended. Yeah, okay. So this is what the galaxy looked like by the time I was done. This is what happens when you become the Crisis. So, needless to say, there's not a whole lot for me to elaborate on with our play as the embodiment of fear. We got what we wanted. But I started off by saying, like, for those of you who have not been long-standing viewers of the channel, every time that we either have a new DLC come out or we start a new, it's usually a new DLC, but basically every time we start a new playthrough, we make a new species. Hey, it's Yuch, how you doing? And so, you know, some of them I've had to update. So for instance, the Mishar Cooperative was sort of my space communists. And obviously, I mean, like, there's a hammer and sickle flag now. And as more mechanics have been sort of added to the game, I've had to sort of update a few of them. So for instance, the Carillion Conglomerate was a trade league. It's always been a trade league, but trade leagues have been changed into corporate. At least those dig sites still exist. Yeah. Intergalactic archaeologists will be able to see the remnants. But yeah, so I've had to update a few of them. Essentially what I do is I try to keep them as they were, unless there's a compatibility problem, and then at that point to sort of update them. This incidentally is why there's a lot of Prosperous Unifications. It's not that I think Prosperous Unification's like the best start, but obviously for some of them, like, you can tell the one which started when they added Origins. So now we've got Jomar Limited, which is Doomsday. We've got the Black Codex, which has Remnants, and we've got the Fear, which are Galactic Doorsteps. So you can kind of start seeing me, you know, have a little more variety. I keep picking all the Megacorps lately. But yeah, so we've got, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. These were my space cats, by the way. So yeah, we got 20 species in. We will be making species number 21. And it's fun, because I always write a little biography for each of these species. And it was kind of funny because when I started, it was always just, you know what, we're just going to mess around a little bit. It was mostly because if you look at the base game, sorry, when I say base game, some of these are added, like, so for instance, you can't be the Tebrid homologue from, you know, if you don't have the if you don't have the oh god, what is it? Synthetic Dawn DLC. But basically, you have a number of sort of species. So if you don't want to make a new species, like if you just want to jump in with the game, boom, you play United Nations of Earth, you know, mankind's first steps out into the broader galaxy, and you've got you know, you're ready to play. I think from the very start I've always liked making a new species, and so, you know, I just kind of go in, and because when I take a look at what Paradox has done, they will usually write, you know, they'll write out a little bit of a biography. They get to cheat. I do not believe it's possible to add sort of blank lines in the description. So you'll notice that I've got these very long paragraphs for every single species. That's not deliberate. That's part of just a function of how the game works. But what was nice, people have been very, very kind in terms of the ideas for the different species that I have, and this has actually started to make me a little self-conscious. Some of you who've watched for a while, oh, thank you very much, it's huge. I had a wonderful time in Vancouver. I got to meet some really cool people. I think, again, I don't want to whine too much about work, because I think, everybody's got their issues at work. Some people are trying to get work, so, me complaining about work is not always, I don't know, it's not always the best thing to do. But I'd forgotten, or maybe didn't realize, how much I sort of internalized some of the issues at work, like just kind of largely feeling that my work is sort of undervalued, or I'm undervalued, and the work is maybe not always the most stimulating. And I ran into a lot of people who I kind of talked to them about some ideas, or I showed them some stuff, and they were really supportive and really encouraging. And I was like, oh, I forgot what that's like. So that was really nice. And then, of course, I got a chance to see some friends who I haven't seen in years. And, with that, obviously, you're going to feel a lot more valued and better off. So, again, I don't want to try and give this impression of an overly, a tremendously emotionally fragile creature that's, just one sentence away from being, from being blown up. From what you've heard, Vancouver's similar to Seattle. I haven't been to Seattle in basically since I was a child, so I really don't have a good comparison for it. But yes, from what I understand, there are some fair comparisons that have been made between the two. But yeah, no, I had an absolute blast. I really do want to go back as quickly as I can. And more importantly, I think it one big thing for me was that it how do I put it? It kind of gave me a little bit of fuel for sort of my own independent projects, which I'd slowly started to hang up. So some of you might notice that it's been a while since I put out a blog, and it's not even necessarily that I haven't been writing blogs, but there've definitely been a couple of points where I'm like, you know what, who cares? That's not a great attitude to have, particularly for things that you enjoy doing and that you want to share with people. So, with that in mind, I've hopefully just kind of got a little bit of renewed energy in terms of just making sure that I'm doing things that don't necessarily have a direct reward for me, like in terms of I don't get paid to do it basically, but maybe have a little bit more of a personal satisfaction. Yeah, that's just it. It's huge. This is the thing, is that I never want to take people's readership for granted, because there are people who quite like them, and every once in a while I'll hear, it's like, why haven't you done blogs for a bit? Had a case of the blogs. Yeah. Well, okay, so I do want to focus on Stellaris if I can, but I'll give you an example. I had worked on this big data project. Sorry, when I say big, as in a large project with a lot of data, which at the time, it's great to see you again, by the way, Kodiak Samurai. This was a data set which had been out in the open and available for years, and nobody had really used for analysis on games data. And I did it, and then I had a problem with my virtual machine that completely destroyed that work, and then a bunch of other work that I'd been doing for people. So, well, I like seeing you. So mutual, it's a mutual benefit. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, you know what? That really sucks. I rebuilt the projects that sort of people had some dependencies for. And I was about 3/4 of the way through this project that I'd done, and then I take a look and somebody posts an analysis which wasn't the same analysis. I actually have some differences in terms of the conclusions, but they had used that exact same data site, which was just this beautiful, object that nobody had really been using for. And like I have some timestamps and stuff like that, but like that's not the point, right? The point is just, you know, what would have been this nice big, you know, nobody's done something on this scale before is now, you know, oh yeah, I saw that. You're like doing the same thing that so-and-so did. And I'm like, no, it's actually its own analysis. But, you know, so, you know, after having done this huge project, basically 1 3/4 times, effectively 2 times, and sort of knowing that it's, you know, it's basically going to be seen as the also ran of that particular kind of analysis. And I'm basing this a little bit off of kind of what the reaction to the Kitfox one, which was very nice, but what I noticed was a lot of people were asking sort of the existing people who've established themselves as sort of games data people as like, oh, should I believe this? And I'm like, well, that's not really the point of data, is it? Like, the point is that the analysis should be sound and you're convinced, not, you know, we get all the good ideas from one person over here. So it did kind of lead me to just say, it's like, well, what, you know, what's the point, right? Like, you know, and I, you know, I've just kind of sat on it, and there's a couple that I've written, but in the end, like, just because there's so many other things that I can do, it's never quite pushed over to the finish, which is a shame, because I used to, I mean, I can remember when I would used to blog daily. Admittedly, I had a little bit more free time, but I've always really enjoyed writing, and I think it's another example of how I've let something that gives me a tremendous amount of satisfaction sort of fall by the wayside for no really good reason. So I'm trying to dig myself out of that hole, and that is one of the reasons why the blogs haven't been coming along. And part of that is also just realizing that, you know, I shouldn't feel, you know, discouraged from, you know, the fact that I don't have tens of thousands of readers or something like that. I should maybe just be very happy that there's a group of people who really like the stuff that I have to write, and write for them. Because when I was blogging daily, I didn't have anybody reading. I was very happy to not have anybody reading, because it was effectively a diary. That is not online anymore, by the way, so don't, you know. But anyways, like I said, it's just one of those things where when you get that little bit of validation of like, hey, you know, I liked it when you did X. It's just a nice little reminder that, like, it wasn't, you know, it's the sort of thing where, you know, if you run into saying, you know, what's the point? Well, the point is could that other people like it, and presumably it gives you some level of satisfaction. So stop feeling sorry for yourself and make another one. So actually, maybe I'll try and polish off the one I'm working on tonight. We'll see. But on that note, I have been getting a little self-conscious about the writing, and every time I do a new species, there is a little bit of dread where it's like, oh man, have I lost it? So I'm gonna ask, this is gonna be a little indulgent, but I know some of you really wanted to see this. Would you? So I've got 20 here. I am happy to read all of the outlines for these species. Otherwise, what we can do, I could do one per viewer. I could give each of the names, and we can read them out. Does anybody have a preference for hearing the other species? While we're getting that through, if you have one you want to hear, and like you can see it on the screen, just feel free. I can't quite get them all into the space, so fear is going to be. We just had that one, so I'm assuming you don't want to see that again. But all of the other ones will be in room. But yeah, so. You know, again, the compliments are incredibly nice on this, but the last few times I've done this, I'm a little self-conscious where people are like, oh, people seem to like the bios that I come up with, and like maybe I've lost the magic. I also felt that way when it came to the Steam stream that I did. I'm like, maybe I'm just not as good as explaining this game as I used to be. It's very easy to sort of just get it's a little small on the screen. Fair enough. Yeah, it's hard because if I read out the names, that doesn't really mean anything either. So, and I am playing at my monitor's resolution, which is not the same as my broadcast resolution. So, all right. Here's what I'll do. I'll read out the name and the description that the game gave it, and then if any of you want to hear these, just mention them. So we've got the Oaklar Citizen, and this is going to be the oldest to the newest. So the Oaklar Citizen State is a citizen's republic. Commonwealth of Kirill is a direct democracy, while the Carillion Conglomerate is a trade league. These are the same species, but in different places. It's huge. Would like to see the Zukukan Cabal, so I'll do that. We've got the Mishar Cooperative, which is a direct democracy, the Tekros Multisystem, which is a catalog index, the Mandasura Order, which is a theocratic monarchy, the Rakudon Interstellar, I think, Conglomerate, which is a moral democracy, the Blessed Alari Grand Duchy, which is a feudal empire, Zukukan Cabal, which we'll read now, is a bandit kingdom. So, all right, the Zukukan Cabal. Camdor's history is one of rival fleets competing for the ocean world's few islands. Ports and land brought wealth, but also the raids of all the other pirate fleets, giving rise to an ancient and respected naval tradition among the Zukukan. Recognizing the value of plunder and always short on crew, the pirate kings sought to subdue their foes with as little damage to their future plunder and slaves as possible, a habit that continues to this day. Today marks a new chapter in the history of the Zukukan. United under the admiralty of the pirate queen Prim Krek, the species takes its first steps to the stars, seeking new worlds and the riches that they may bring. Actually, this is one of my less inspired ones, but this was, so they're barbaric despoilers, they have slaver guilds, fanatic authoritarians, and militarists. They're thrifty, so higher trade value. They're slow breeders, so in this case here, this is the idea that they're single islands, and quick learners. So this was basically the... For those of you that don't know what Barbaric Despoilers does, this society holds few things sacred. To fight is to live, and the strongest may seize whatever they covet. So this is one of these ones where you can kind of, when you declare war on people and you attack their planets, you take slaves. So that was specifically why I did that one. Actually, so I've never seen the movie Waterworld, but I'm wondering how much that actually lines up with Waterworld. Because it just occurred to me that I'm talking about all these different islands and spots. Alright, we got the Otaga Sovereignty, which is a moral democracy, Ganavis Prime, the collective consciousness, the Valen Polity, representative democracy, Malgal Research Partnership, a science directorate, Rhizome Capital, a megacorporation, the Akano High Kingdom, Enlightened Monarchy, the Divine Zerite Covenant, Theocratic Oligarchy, Jomar Limited, which is another megacorporation. There's a few megacorporations here, but I think that's just because Rhizome was for the release of megacorps, and Jomar Limited was the best idea that I had for the Doomsday scenario. The Black Codex is a theocratic dictatorship, and the Fear was a ravenous hive. So... Actually, I guess... what's one of them? And do the Commonwealth of Kirill and the Carillion Conglomerate. The Gok spawned on Kirill, a planet long thought to be inhospitable to all forms of life. The unrelenting sun and scarce resources forced the creatures that managed to survive to adapt and cooperate with each other. This cooperation gave birth to commerce, civilization, and now spaceflight. Through their efforts of making the most of what the planet has to offer among all members of society, the Kirill have no concept of a zero-sum game and instead see trade through all of its facets and do not consider it done until both parties have achieved their ends. The reason why I made these ones was for the Carillion Conglomerate, which are, again, the idea here is that they have similar species traits. I did say that we did solitary and quick learners for a reason that will be apparent from the biography in a minute, but I wanted to have the societies be completely different. So, on the deserts of Kirill, there were those known as the Water Drinkers, who greedily sought any oasis and claimed it as their own. The Goxi ethic demanded that, as members of society, they too had their place, but as time went on and the population began to stretch its resources, the excesses of the Water Drinkers faced the elected representatives with the choice of exile for some over starvation for all. The Water Drinkers were sent off and found a new home on the planet Yan. Not forgetting their origins, the Water Drinkers named themselves the Carillions, considering themselves the true sons of their homeland. The Carillion ethic is one of advancement at any cost. The market must not be impeded, and all must rise and fall from its operations. So, obviously two very different takes, and in this case here we had egalitarian and fanatic materialists, whereas these were fanatic egalitarians and materialists. So... yeah, as you can see, lots of different species inside here, and I've been feeling a little self-conscious. Like, sometimes I sit down and it's like, should I come up with a really good species idea or not? And I've never really liked the idea of coming in with a canned species. And so this was my effort of saying, like, we're going to do a new Stellaris game, and I'm specifically not going to think about a species before I start, and I'm going to face my fears and just come up with something new. So, but I do always like sort of kicking against suggestions that chat has. So maybe this will be my effort. And if any of you want to see the previous, species for ideas or details or anything like that, I'm happy to. I noticed that people do want to hear more about the species, but it tends to be later on in the stream. But yeah, if you want to know anything that was previously in there, I'll do my best to accommodate. So this will be my effort to try and unpack the creative process. So sometimes when I think about a species, I'll take a look at the different portraits and get some ideas. So for instance, when I looked at, when you have fungoid, was it fungoid? Yeah, no, when you have the fungoid and you look at something like this, there's a story behind this. When you take a look at, you can look at some of the cutest. I mean, like, then there's, sometimes people go for irony, right? And so it's like, okay, well, this is clearly my terrifying theocracy that wants to clan it, the what is it, fanatical purifiers or whatever. Olaf, how you doing? You're actually just in time for species creation. So, by the way, if so, I noticed. I think Cool Facts was saying. Oh, hang on, you changed from capitalism, didn't you? So you're back to your original name. So you said clone army. So if we want to talk about clones, we can. But yeah, like one thing that's been really good for some inspiration is just the. Looking at portraits, you've got some ideas. Like, so for this one, we chose this at the end on Jomar, but this like just looked so innocent, right? It's like just a nice old space cow. Well, I guess if you wanted like a space cow, you'd probably look at something in here. Yeah, there's definitely more cow-like faces inside of this. But sometimes you just take a look at a species and you're like, you know what? I like. That's clearly the insurance for. Now I got to see which one you're talking about. Oh, wait. No, this is the insurance company. That's okay. I'm doing all right, Olaf. I got a little bit less done at work than I wanted to, but I'll make it up tomorrow. We're just settling in for species creation in Stellaris. But yeah, if anybody does have things that they'd like to see, I don't promise that I'll follow through on all of them, but it's fun to kick around a few ideas. But sometimes, I'll look like, so for instance, I'm looking at this one here and I'm like, you know what, this looks kind of neat. Like, actually, I think I actually got the idea for the species that I want out of this, and it's not going to make any sense as to why I specifically thought about this one, but yeah, sometimes you just see a portrait and you're like, oh, work from home, yeah. I believe we will get the option to, I love this one, by the way, like, just look at that. But I believe the office is going to be opening up again, but they definitely want us to jump through quite a few hoops to make that happen. So I'm definitely doing more work from home, which I certainly don't mind not having the commutes. Oh man, I forgot how beautiful the lithoid ones were. I like the plantoid ones too. I think the plantoid was the first species pack. Yeah, I mean, I actually do like some aspects of The Office, so the fact that you're able to like interact and sort of take the measure of someone, I think is valuable, but not at any cost, right? And particularly the people I'm working with. So first of all, there seems to be a very clear preference for work from home. And, in the end, the benefit is the network effects of being present in the office. So if everybody prefers to work from home, like, what's the point in making someone feel... Like, what's the point in making someone, stay in office that they don't want to be? Like, in my case, because nobody wants to go back to work. Well, they want to be working. They want to be employed, but they don't want to be in the building. I think I just need to make my peace with the fact that I'll be working from home. Although I do need a better office setup if I'm going to be full-time work from home. But yeah, anyways, that actually leads me to the next thing. So as you can see, like I already talked about, okay, there's actually a few ideas here. Like this is another one. I really got to make an avian species like this. Overall, I've not really touched the avians as much as I would like. So sometimes you'll look at a portrait and you'll be like, you know what? I know exactly what these people are all about. I'm not very good with names. I actually know some people who really do not like thinking on the macro level about. In fact, I know somebody who writes for a living, who. They've written some stuff that you would love. They've written worlds that I know some of you pay money to experience. And they don't like this part. What they do like is this part. They love coming up with individual ruler names and things about that. Whereas me, I don't know why, because obviously the most interesting stories are stories of individual people. But I do tend to feel a little bit better about coming up with the broad stroke of the broad strokes of the of the species, and then just having sort of the individual stories pop out. So, name lists, I'll admit, I've never really taken a lot of inspiration from. I think you can. I mean, do you want to come up with your space Romans? Do you want to, which set of names? I tend to find, though, that there are names that this tends to nudge more than anything. Maybe you'll say, well, what's the home system like? Again, there's lots of different things that might emerge. When I had the Zukukan Cabal, I think I knew I wanted to do the barbaric despoilers, but then it was like, okay, well, why? Like, what led to this particular ethic? And I'm like, scarce resources. You've got these like pirate fleets, and the idea that when you go to war with, it's like some of the ideas of like Blackbeard, right? How part of his whole thing was to actually just scare the hell out of people so that he could take everything, not just randomly sink ships. So it's like, okay, yeah. So how about the pirates and kings and queens? I'm like, I'd see that. So and then move on, and then say it's like, okay, and then they eventually go to navies and space navies and so on. Oh, I think you've mentioned that before. Cool facts. Exactly what your company's seeing. Not many people go into the office, so that network. Yeah. I mean. And I don't know if you're able to quite get the same experience of face to face, but obviously if you have the productivity gains from people being able to work in an environment that works best for them, and you have and then you kind of measure that against whatever benefits are lost by not being able to have those individual interactions with people. And the thing is that I think they were largely squandered in the before times. Maybe at certain firms, like, good creative firms tend to do a very good job of enabling this stuff. But by and large, I think that most I think most places just really didn't realize those benefits, and whether or not they could be recaptured again, it's almost a moot point, because people are just simply going to want to keep working from home, and if you try and reimpose it, then you're going to lose all of those benefits from people's work. Hey, we got a few people in here. Okay, we got Night Valiant. So how you doing? You don't remember Blackbeard exploding suns? Well, we didn't blow up the suns as the Zukukan Cabal. That wasn't in the game yet. How you doing, Night Valiant? We actually showed the galaxy as it looked at the end of the previous playthrough. There's literally all black holes on the map now. For those of you who don't know Night Valiant, he's playing, is it Dragon's Breath 3? I believe it is a sequel to a game that I kept getting the name wrong, but he is enjoying his old games. And it's great to see you, Wolfenstein. I hope you're doing well. Anyways, so I tend not to find a lot of inspiration out of the planets and that. What I do tend to find is if I have read something, it will forever be Dragon's Breath 3. Now I gotta find what this stupid name is. I'm so sorry, by the way. We've not been spending a lot of time on species creation. We've just been kind of chatting about stuff, but we will get onto it. Don't worry. The thing is that some of this stuff,
and I've been working on it for about a...
Jesus. Actually, there's quite a few of you, so my apologies. We will be jumping into the new species. Breath of fire. All right. Anyways, what I do tend to find, though, is, these digressions and just reading stuff online. It's actually where I used to get paper ideas, too. You'll read something, and it will catch your attention, or it'll maybe lie dormant for a little bit. And you'll say, okay, this might be a fun idea for a species. So I'm not going to use any of these, but let's give you some examples. I'm going to lose half the viewers saying this right now, and I'm sorry, but I am not going... So the thing about Elon Musk is that because he's incredibly annoying on Twitter, I think there's a bunch of people, and I know some people just have issues with very large amounts of wealth. There are a bunch of people who want to deny him his intellectual abilities that he clearly has. I'm not interested in doing that. I do think, however, that guy really needs to grow the hell up. And it is also very important to recognize that skill in one field does not necessarily grant you skill in another field. But like it or not, this guy is in the... This guy is sort of like in the headlines a lot. And he's specifically been in headlines for a couple of reasons, right? One is his rather curious decision to pick a fight with the UN food program, and then the decision to leave the liquidation of part of his Tesla holdings down to a Twitter poll. So this is the sort of stuff that's perfect for science fiction, right? Just read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Zaphod Beeblebrox is not the sort of person who you would normally associate as being the president of the galaxy, except that if you read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you realize that Zaphod Beeblebrox is in fact the only suitable candidate for the president of the galaxy. And so when you look at these particular scenarios, you say, it's like, okay, so, what would a planet that relied on, how well somebody was feeling about themselves on Twitter, determining whether or not there would be money granted towards, towards food programs. What would that be like? Or, suppose the... another example that you might take is that the Tesla stock sale is in response to changes that are potentially going to be made to the tax code. And one of the issues that's coming up, this is one of the things that one of the jobs that I was sort of considering out of school, is the idea of transfer pricing, being able to move money into different jurisdictions to lower the overall tax bill. And one of the things that international organizations are trying to work on, and governments are trying to work on, is sort of a set of standards so that I guess it's a little different from forum shopping, but it's pretty close. But basically you can't pick your favorite tax region. That there's sort of a set of international agreements to make sure that that the taxes are ultimately being paid. Yeah, Wolfenstein, the only thing is that I know that that particular personality will provoke very strong opinions. And I think the challenge is that as someone who strongly holds opinions but maybe doesn't necessarily hold strong opinions, I am simultaneously willing to acknowledge, his obvious success and obvious intelligence, while also simultaneously thinking that he is a colossal jackass. Like it is possible. I think anybody who's been on the internet can know that these two things are true, right? There's lots of very smart people on the internet who, it would be utterly intolerable to be in a conversation with for even 10 minutes. So yeah, like that's all I'm coming from. So yeah, like and again, like the thing is that the only reason why I prefaced it is that I know there are definitely quite a few people who will take it very strong, like either like, so a lot of people really do look up to him, and I think in some cases you can look up to it for the right reasons, right? It's hard not to see some of the the enterprises that he has been involved in as being ones that are not very aspirational. I mean, I can talk about like some of the specific things in terms of the public money he takes, but this is Stellaris, right? This isn't a podcast. But no, like the thing is that I want to talk about it as a potential source for ideas for species, and just not get sort of drawn down the rabbit hole of talking about wealth inequality, or whether or not it's okay for him to call the diver that helped rescue the kids in Thailand the pedo guy and stuff like that. I just don't find that a very edifying conversation. But you can start thinking, when you're talking about species that have gone to flight, right? So again, why am I spending the time talking about this when I say I didn't want it here? This is the stuff that can make for interesting Stellaris species. You've got private space flight, right? You've got the ambition to colonize Mars. And you've got someone with an ego fragile enough that they do pick fights online, and they don't like it when people challenge the idea that they didn't tell. So I think the whole thing about the diver was that the diver questioned the utility of this submarine that was made, and somebody wouldn't, and in this case, when you've got a lot of money in a Twitter account, you can suddenly make, you can suddenly sort of sick your followers on them or whatever. So the thing is that you can have this idea, you have sort of this very, when you think of like the classics of science fiction, and you have these, Arthur C. Clarke style stories, or some Robert Heinlein, and you have this very polished and interesting future. And then you can say, it's like, well, what if that future was brought along by, someone who clearly has skills, but is a bit of a drama queen? That can lead you to some fun stuff. And again, you can find it from anywhere. One of the species that I'd come up with was based off of the fact that the Johnny Walker slogan "Keep Walking" had been used in so many different sort of everything from sort of political movements to to just sort of God, I'm trying to think of the exact name for it, but obviously it's used in advertising. But basically this idea here that this really sort of, the Oklar Citizen Republic earlier was built around the idea that the rallying cry for this species to end its global war was actually just some ad copy. That it had, is the most. It's actually, the other undercurrent, which I didn't talk about that one. There was two things. One was the Johnny Walker ad, but the other one was the fact that Obama did not really like the change that we can believe in slogan. He thought it was pretty lame, but people got. I'm pretty sure that was there was one line of his. He personally did not like it, but it clearly worked, and so that's why he delivered it. And so that was a chance for me to do a species sort of based around the idea of sort of slogans and how much the species could sort of hold together for it. So I picked some deviancy and things like that. And then sometimes too, I'll build a species around the idea of ethics. So it's like, I kind of want to know what it would be like to mess around with some of these here. So the first question, I'm going to get an opinion if I can, would anybody mind if I did another mega corporation? And there's a couple of reasons for this. There is a type of mega corporation I haven't done yet, which I would be interested in. The other thing is because of the Empire Sprawl penalties, that might be an interesting way for me to mess around a bit with the to see if I can learn my lessons in terms of growing at a particular rate. The only thing is that I know with the Jomar Republic, we have kind of recently had a mega corporation. So I'm not opposed to doing another Gestalt Consciousness. It'd probably be a machine intelligence, though, which again is kind of similar. It's not necessarily going to be determined exterminator, but we are, it is kind of retreading old territory. But I'm just curious if anybody feels strongly about another megacorp, because I actually had a bit of an idea when I saw, and I don't even know why it was this particular species. It was one of these guys again. Yeah, well, I'll just put it to you this way. I used that as an example. That's not actually the inspiration that I have for this particular playthrough. I'll take a quick look at some of the other. Okay, actually, tell you what. So when I saw this guy, and again, I can't necessarily tell you why, but I really like the idea of a criminal enterprise that traces its origin back to basically something like Prohibition. I just for some reason really like the idea of an interstellar speakeasy, and I've not played a criminal enterprise. I haven't played a criminal enterprise megacorp yet. I just really like the idea of like the stellar rum runners actually getting big enough that they can influence the galaxy. So that's where I'm thinking if we do megacorp. But if people feel strongly about another megacorp, I'm willing to consider others. But now that I've taken the wrapper off, who are the other? Which of these ones look like they would operate the futuristic equivalent of a speakeasy? I mean, if I want something that looks like the reptile that I had, that would probably be a good one. It's a tough customer, sort of fellow you'd see at the front door. I mean, you could go the other direction too, which is they became legitimate. Like I think it would be Sleemans likes to advertise this, so you get somebody who's particularly charismatic. This is definitely this would be the bartender of the speakeasy, I think. Oh, okay. So do we do something like Xenophile? Oh man, this is gonna be weird, but I think I have some ideas here. This one can't run the speakeasy, but oh, maybe they can run the speakeasy and the helmet's on so that they don't sample the product. Yeah, this is one of the things I like. So one of the reasons why it's kind of neat to be able to stream while you're doing this sort of stuff. Some of these ideas suck, right? But you can say them aloud, and the ones that are interesting you just throw away, and the ones that might stick, you just kind of hang on to them and you move on. I think this might be the portrait of the very first species I ever played in Stellaris. Number 2 mammalian or number 12 bird? Okay, this one? Yeah. So that would be the and then 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, really? You see, this one is the head of a... Okay, no. I get it. The very elongated features. That's definitely someone who's the head. So you've kind of got, we've got Al Capone, and we've got I don't know who would be. I'm trying to remember the character Denzel Washington plays in American Gangster, the one who does not want to be seen at any point. At some point, I got to figure out what to do with the mantis shrimp. Okay, what else do we have here? Moonshine. Okay, so I think we're gonna go with the Interstellar Rum Runners. I am a little curious now that there's traits. So one thing I am a little curious about is they said that they made some changes when you have... Oh, here we go. So phototropic. 50% of base food with energy upkeep. That's interesting. Radiotropic. Oh, wow! Some of these are really cool for the plantoids. Okay. I'm sorry to ignore a couple of... well, not ignore, but move on. I think I am going to keep my original... species choice. Okay, so next up, let's just... I'm never really good with ship types, so let's just see if there's anything that sort of fits. So we've got Maktasam Battle Group, we've got the Relentless Star Hunters, the Leaping Star Hunters, Swift Star Hunters, we've got the Void Skulkers. Ooh, Void... Yeah, that's definitely the sort of thing that you would... That's the sort of thing that you would go for. Okay, Geary Armada. Okay, yeah, so this definitely... I think this definitely fits a lot better. These are the you'd call a fleet dedicated to like offloading your treasure. Void Skulkers works. Okay, so and now all of a sudden we're starting to see so we got a few ideas that we can come here. Now if it's reptilian, I suspect it might be a dry world. Oh, that's an interesting one. So you have perhaps it's not a moral... Maybe it's not a moral panic that decides that this species, like, so the origins of the, of the rum running or whatever, weren't necessarily due to a moral panic like prohibition, but in this case it's some sort of resource shortfall or... actually, tell you, let me just... Oh, no, hang on, I wasn't sure if I had my tablet with me, but where's my pen? You gotta be kidding me. Sorry, I'll be back in just a second. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, so maybe what we have is some kind of imposition, just in order to deal with a drought or something. So we've got savanna, a rocky world dominated by dry, arid plains covered in nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. A small hydrosphere allows for brief wet seasons. Aside from a few ubiquitous grasses, vegetation is largely concentrated around shallow oases. Dry rocky world with nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. Dust-covered terrain consists largely of mesas and canyons. Forests can be found in the more temperate polar regions. Vegetation is otherwise scarce. And then Ericus. Dry rocky world with a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. Precipitation and major bodies of surface water are relatively rare. Significant temperature variations between day and night cycles. Vegetation is scarce, but even moderate precipitation can make the desert bloom. Okay, actually that's not as bad as I thought it would be. Maybe I should... maybe we'll try arid. I'm not married to it though. And normally, unless I can come up with a better... So this would be the reptilian look. I don't necessarily see anything that... A dry world for the pun? Yeah. Okay, well, we're definitely doing that. Okay, so let's come up with some origins now. So, prosperous unification, a stable planetary unification allows this civilization to prosper and grow. We'd have to be materialists, so this civilization has been preoccupied with the idea of metallic automatons since the early steam age. Although many said it could not be done, the first true robots left the assembly lines long before even rudimentary spaceflight was achieved. So you have syncretic evolution, so a second species forms an integral part of the civilization. They are big, strong, and most of them have the intelligence of a particularly dim-witted child. Ancient wars have culled the species of their most aggressive tendencies, leaving them quite servile. Life-seeded, the civilization has evolved in a paradise, possibly designed just for them, so we couldn't do dry. Post-apocalyptic, this is Tomb World, so... I mean, there is something kind of interesting about this one. Baptized by nuclear fire, the civilization has faced total annihilation and survived. Devastated yet unbroken, they have rebuilt civilization from the ashes of the old world. So I think we've already done remnants. So the civilization once spanned the void, controlling much of the galaxy. They were eventually defeated and almost destroyed, but after a long period of destitution, they are returning to the stars. Shattered Ring, the civilization inhabits a ring world built by unknown forerunners. It can be understood, and if it can be understood and fully repaired, it will grant them great power. Void Dwellers, a civilization has made its home in space for as long as it has maintained records. Life in a typical planetary environment is anathema to them. They've on 3 orbital habitats that were only recently united. I mean, this would be kind of interesting where they eventually went off-world. It does mean that I don't have to live on a desert planet anymore, but we can still work with that. So this civilization has made its home. Wait a minute, I don't know if we did remnants before. Now that I think of it, no, we did, because Scion is Scion's a different one. Okay, start with orbital habitats and the technology to build more. Members of your species thrive on habitats and produce 15% more there. Severe habitability penalties alongside a minus 15% production penalty on all normal planets. And hydroponic farms have +1 farmer job. That might be kind of interesting, actually. So Scion, a fallen empire, has meddled in the development of the civilization for thousands of years, guiding them onto the path of their choosing. So we did Galactic Doorstep for fear. Tree of Life would have to be hive mind. So this hive evolved in a symbiotic relationship with a vast tree. The tree grants them many benefits, but its loss would cripple them. On the shoulders of giants, the civilization has hidden boons in their solar system, placed there by a distant past and a mysterious benefactor. Okay, so Arthur C. Clarke again. Calamitous Bird. This is a fun one. I really do want to try this at some point. Not native to their homeworld, these lithoids arrived when a meteorite slammed into the planet and killed off most of the native life. Resource consolidation. This would have to be a machine intelligence. The machine intelligence has long since consolidated all resources in their home system into their capital world, covering it entirely with machinery. Common ground. The civilization established early contact with their immediate alien neighbors. Finding strength in their differences, they soon decided to face the future and whatever it might bring together. So this one is potentially interesting if you see it. Expect me to use an Italian accent for the entire stream? Oh, God. This one's kind of interesting because you have the possibility of sort of this unifying of these different crime families together. So from what I understood, this was actually a fairly strong way to start. So you start as a leader of a galactic union. I don't know, though. Hegemon is one where you do that sort of through fights. Oh, that's what you were talking about with Clone Army, by the way. I get it now. I didn't realize this was here because we didn't make a species when the new Lem patch came out. So Hegemon... same idea, except that it's brought about by force. Doomsday we've done. It's not that challenging. Lost colony, the civilization originated as a lost and forgotten colony separated by its homeworld long ago. The struggling colonists endured many hardships before they were able to build up the necessary technological and industrial base that would allow for a return to space and clone armies. So let's see what the deal here is. A species of short-lived and infertile soldier clones, exceptionally proficient in matters of war, left masterless and alone to question their engineered purpose and uncertain fate. Oh god, I wish I'd read that before. There's a lot that I could do with that. So you start with 2 ancient clone vats, buildings in your homeworld producing 2 clone soldier pops. Ancient clone vats have an empire limit of 5. Clone army admirals grant an additional 25% ship fire rate and a 10% reduced ship upkeep. Oh god. Okay, I'm committed to this. I'm committed to this Rum Runners idea, but I've not done Void Dwellers before, so we're gonna pick that. At which point I suppose it doesn't really matter what the city appearance is like. So you can call it Nats, Nar, Jurandar, Beska. Hydrax is kind of interesting. I do like Natraxia. Or maybe we could go for like a really... We could go for like a really on brand name. Does anybody know the names of like famous speakeasies? Because I don't really know a lot about this subject. Should get Eyes of Sin here, who did I think she's in Chicago right now. I'm just doing a quick internet search right now. So we got Chumley's, the ear in the back of Ratner's, Beatrice in. Oh, actually no. Here's an idea. Here's how we name this. So let's find a ruler. This one will make male. Oh, I need a species name though. Oh right, hang on. I got to work this out a little bit. Okay, so we'll do the government and ethics just so that I can lock in a few other details here. So we will go for a megacorp. We have to do criminal heritage, so we only have one more civic left. So brand loyalty, catalytic processing. Megacorporations seek to maximize profits by recycling excess organic matter into advanced resources suitable for spacebound structures. Corporate hedonism. Okay, I can see that. Work is where you want to be. The citizens of this megacorporation happily pledge allegiance and all their free time to their employers in exchange for lavish corporate comforts. Okay. Franchising. Free trader. I was originally going to go for something like free traders. Mastercraft Incorporated. Media conglomerate. Oh man, a criminal media conglomerate? That would be amazing. Private prospectors, public relations specialists, ruthless competition. Okay, actually, here's one thing I want to do. Let's just see. Are there any special... I don't know if there's any special names that you get. I don't think you get them just for the combination here. I think if you do... Yeah, you can get subversive cult, but I think you actually need to... You need to find the right 3, and I'm not quite sure I want to work it. Okay. So corporate hedonism... Like, here's the thing. Yes, you think that might work for the idea that we have, but it's not the only possible motivator, right? So I'll allow it. Free traders, I was thinking just, again, because they're trying to get around block. Like again, it could just be a protest of the restrictions. And again, all levels of this society and this maker corporation constantly vying with each other in ruthless competition and dog eat dog. That doesn't work for me. So yeah, I do free traders in other cases. So let's try corporate hedonism. Yeah, I was thinking about it, but it doesn't have to be violent. Okay. So what are the other things that we would consider? So now we have ethics. So we've got, we know we're criminals. This mega corporation can trace its origins back to a crime syndicate that eventually grew powerful enough to supplant all forms of local government. So cannot form commercial pacts, can build branch offices on the planet of any regular empire that they have no war or active truce with. Crime on branch office planets increases branch office value. Can build special crime increasing corporate buildings, infiltration speed plus 20%, and code breaking plus 1. So what would be funny is if they're xenophilic and like pacifists. So they don't necessarily want war. They just want to make money. You fully expect me to name at least one ruler, Al Capone? Yeah, so here's the thing, right? Just because it's a criminal syndicate doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be like a violent takeover. Okay, so this species felt that the planet's resources were being mismanaged. So like, let's say, again, we also had the COP26 recently, right? So let's just say in reaction to sort of climate change issues or some other global disaster, governments decided to impose restrictions on certain activities, either, and again, like this could be, think rationing during World War II, or the, sort of a bunch of, there's plenty of examples in history where governments have said is like, okay, no, you know what, we're stepping in, you can and can't buy certain things, or you're limited in certain amounts because there's a national emergency going on. And these guys said, I'm not into that. You can't restrict our ability to trade. Either they see the government as illegitimate, or they see the essentially the problems as being ones that are the government's fault, not theirs. And so they move around it. So one of the things I was thinking of is that as this group gains influence, like they could actually be doing, so when I saw the other species, like, oh, well, maybe they're like xenophiles, because they're actually also maybe people who ran sort of underground networks. They used the same things that moved the booze also moved fugitives. But then I was like, well, you know what? The idea of enslaving species, I can actually kind of see that being a thing. Like, obviously, a criminal enterprise does involve, the goods that can be transferred are not necessarily just, not necessarily just sort of tangible goods. So I guess if you have to have like a crime boss. So I guess we could say authoritarian would work here. So single voice, single throne, single state. It's solemn duty of the masses to obey the enlightened few who have been charged with the great responsibility of leadership, or a strong guiding hand is essential for the success of any civilization. The alternative would be anarchy and chaos. It's the duty of the state to steer its citizens towards paths that would be most productive. Well, let's start with authoritarian. I haven't quite figured out how far I would want to go for it. Yeah, okay, we'll get away from the, I don't know though. Conflict by as a means to an end is a ridiculous concept. It is by its very nature destructive, destroying what has to be obtained, giving room for that. Yeah, it's a tough call. I'm trying to decide, are we militarists or not? Yeah, well, I mean, again, if you, but yeah, no, I definitely see, this being something that's all about. I definitely see this being the project which is very much enriching the person who is at the top. They might bring some other people along for the ride, but question is, how strongly do they hold their views? So militarist is a tough one for me to say. But I think what I'll say, we will go for some degree of militarist in lieu of the fact that I didn't do. This is a little harder than I thought it would be. So in lieu of ruthless competition, we'll maybe say militarist for for the sharp elbows you need. And I can either go for a third civic, so we could go. So I can't do xenophile because of it's closing off the possibility of slavery. Spiritualist, I don't quite see it as your God-given right to trade. This definitely seems to be a bit more science-oriented. So you know what? Let's just do fanatic authority. Oh, hang on. Never mind, we can't do fanatic there. So I guess it's fanatic militarist. The ability to project force is of paramount importance. The only way to preserve our way of life is to make sure that everybody shares it willingly or not. All right. Sorry about the time. This is probably one of the longer setups, but I know it took me a little longer to get going. Okay, so we've got Void Dweller. What do we pick then? So Deviant seems like the sort of thing that we might assign for these guys, but unruly. So I mean, again, if we've got commercial interests, then there's some natural picks like thrifty, adaptive. Charismatic does seem kind of interesting just because, I don't know, like the idea of particularly charming, like somebody who's trying to go legitimate after building it. Yeah, but they're in like orbital habitat, so like the adaptability is definitely about your ability. Like adaptive isn't necessarily a statement about their ability to like learn quickly. It's more of a statement of their like. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid the negatives right away because usually I go for negatives in order to be able to like get other traits. So, ingenious kind of seems appropriate. Hey, NC Jubilee, how you doing? They took over a planet due to booze after all. Yeah, that's a good point. Ingenious seems a bit much. So, I think it was. You could just do talented and quick learners. So if we wanted to go for deviant, what would we get in response? Well, what we could do, if we say deviance, then we would get either ingenious or thrifty. Yeah, okay, maybe that's what we can do. I mean, decadent might make sense as well. Oh, I guess, sorry, you were saying decadent, not deviant. Yeah, okay, I see it. A particularly clever band of rogues. It's a little different from what I had in plan, but...
As the learned say, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is also mine. As the learned say...
Oh, God. Oh, just need a species name. Okay, where... Oh, here we go. This might just be a placeholder, but I do want to pick something that I might stick with. Raxar works. Simple. Yeah, that works. Okay. We won't do a flag quite yet. Oh, that's new. So I'm just doing this so that I can access the... Kirax, Dorvax, both those work. So normally this is something I don't worry about too much because I don't need to read it for the whole game, but I do have a plan on this. So Vamex? Yeah, that works. All right. So we're naming the home system Kirax's... Is it Kiriox? Yeah, Kiriox's private stash. Ruler title boss. Okay, so now we're just going to close in the last few... At this point, we just need to get the last few details in. You know what? We can do appearances now. So Reptilian would be... This would be the default look. I don't think there's anything new. Oh, actually, Imperial's a thing. I don't know, there is something quite nice about just sort of the very boxy look of the reptilian ships. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be our ship appearance. So what kind of a room? And this portrait just covers everything up. I'm looking for the one with like lots of jars and stuff like that. The most ramshackle. Hey, you could take pride. I mean, it's the boss's room, right? It might be very might be very businesslike. I was thinking of the one with like lots of jars in the background, because it sort of suggests that it really is the private stash. On the other hand, you're right. Like I've talked with a couple people in the Navy, and they're sort of like talking about like the difference between, I don't know. This works. I kind of like this. They're kind of talking about the difference between, like when you're boarding a ship and like how the military keeps their ships one way, and like you can kind of see how the bad guys, quote unquote, don't really have a lot of pride in their the ship design, you mean? Yeah. Like the bad guys don't have a lot of pride in their in their vessel. Not a lot of options here, so all right. we've got Curiox. I guess we can work out a flag here. I wasn't thinking of doing pirates, but... there's a couple possibilities here. This works, though. Yeah, I don't know. I think that works. Do we pick colors that resemble the leader? Do gold representing the jet exhaust as we leave the planet. Sure. All right. So it says Raxar Cartel. You just joined at the right time. I don't know. We got to kick around a few ideas. The problem is that actually the story, I used to have a clear idea of a story when I saw this guy, and then it's got jumbled around a little bit as we looked at different ethics and such. Okay, so what are we going to do here? I wanted to try and come up with like a name. I don't know. Gang names. Are those really a thing? Like, I know they have to have a name, but... Snapping Turtlemen? Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm just thinking, like, what if we went for something even older? Like, you know how Sherlock Holmes would always have help from the Baker Street Irregulars? Yeah, I actually really like that. So maybe we name it after the star, the Natraxian... Yeah, you know what? Screw it. We're gonna go straight for what is it? Yeah, they're the Natraxian Rum Runners. We don't need to make this fancier than it is, and the adjective will be the boys. Okay. So yeah, the species can still be called Raxar. And it's the story of Curiox. All right. So let's try and I'll try and be somewhat timely on the biography, but this might be a little rough. Okay. God, what's his name again? Curiox. Okay. And the... Oh, I guess we don't have the planet. Alright, well... Alright. Let's say its temperature's falling because they are reptilians, so... No. Sorry, I'm trying to work out how to bridge these together. So the idea here, we were talking about COP26 and that. So the idea is to communicate a little bit of this crime organization's attitude towards what it did. And so the idea here is that these rum runners, I mean, again, they keep growing, they keep getting bigger. And it is somewhat the government's neglect. Essentially, the way that this crime boss, who is by no means, sort of a man of the people or anything like that, he's just looking at us like, oh, I see. So you've ignored this problem so long. I didn't add anything to the, to climate change, and now you're coming in telling me how to run my business. Screw you guys. So that's kind of what I'm trying to communicate here with this biography. Sorry, I just need a second to gather my thoughts on this, and I'll write the next little bit. I shouldn't have got rid of that. All right, it's not great, but let's work this out. So, when Rexar Carson wrote Spaceless Spring, the Rexari governments did nothing. When the temperatures began to drop and the scientists spoke out, they would not be moved. Only when the catastrophe came, they acted. I do not recognize their authority. I am a man of action. Where were they when my father's business foundered? Where were the excise men when the hypermart leveled the family store? Each new regulation gives us another edge over our rivals. When the world united to ban our trade, we took it to the stars. Now the planet is encased in ice, and we've got plenty of product to unload. Time to find some new customers. So that's basically the effort on this. This is a little bit different in terms of how I did the biography, but the idea here is to sort of tell the story of the... to tell the story of this criminal enterprise first person. So the idea is that the species of the Raxar, the boss, is particularly intelligent, came from a legitimate family, definitely saw... So again, obviously this... I'm tying in some of the stuff that we talked about before, right? Saw the family firm go under, saw, the snapping turtle version of Walmart kind of come in. And as far as they're concerned, went out to do business for themselves and did it through illegitimate means. And so essentially had the infrastructure in place to... So as far as they were concerned, they're a very good student of business. When the government would impose more restrictions on his criminal trade, this would just simply, for those of you who are business fans, this is just simply widening the moat. This is just another hurdle that they're very effective at working around, and this just simply means that they get better. And so as far as they're concerned, they're just simply one step ahead of the law. And so when there was finally this global pact to deal with when there's this final pact to sort of deal with this enterprise, they just simply took it off world. And in the meantime, it's not to suggest that they wasted their time going after the criminals, but simply that by virtue of the fact that they were able to take their business off world, and this species was completely incapable of handling the catastrophe that arrived, this group that essentially went out into space to avoid the quotas and limitations brought on in response to the disasters are actually the surviving members of the species. Anybody who decided to come along with this criminal band are in fact the ones who are up in space now. So I don't know. Is everybody okay with that? I know this is like a half an hour and a half of setting up a species. It's not quite where I originally wanted to go, but I think it'll be interesting. Any yays, nays? This is the last chance to speak up before we jump into another one. And again, I do need to apologize. This is probably the longest I've taken. Theme sounds... Oh, thank you so much, Salvage Drifter. Like I said, it's a longer one than usual. I know we had a few people in here before. I don't know whether or not we kept them or not, but sounds like people are okay with it. And now we get to the boring parts of the game where I just get my backside kicked by the AI. So here we go. We've got the Nextrarian Rum Runners. And we're not going to do tiny. Let's do medium? Medium or large? I think medium or large will work. Okay, now we did Captain last time. That was a little too easy, so I think I'm going to take it back up to Commodore. Oh wow, we're really far from Granite. Okay, no, we'll do Commodore. I think I just got unlucky that time that I did Commodore. So maybe I'm just a little more scared of my skill than I thought I was before. I don't really have a good way of randomly deciding this, so I'm just gonna wait till there we go. Another ring? Nah, okay. I'm not gonna do ring again. I usually just wait till I see a chat message to stop, and then okay, I can work with elliptical. Everything else I'll just kind of keep as defaults. Now, the funny thing is for all of the this is now the 21st of the species that have been added to the game. So the funny thing here is I don't think I've run into a species that I've created recently. So the Nexarian Rum Runners. To most, the vacuum of space is a hostile environment to be conquered or overcome. To us, it is home. For thousands of years, our species has resided on 3 space stations, each orbiting a different sun in a trinary star system. Whether they were built by our ancestors or someone else, we do not know. So obviously, the game does sometimes run roughshod over some of my backstory. Although our biology would suggest that our species at some point originated on a planet, recorded history makes no mention of it. Some speculate that the shattered planetary remnants found beneath one of our stations is the lost homeworld of our species, but the truth may never be known. It has been only a few centuries since spaceflight, allowing travel between our 3 stations was invented or rediscovered, depending on who you ask. Suspicion and mistrust gradually gave way to trade and mutual cooperation. By the time of our first hyperdrive, the 3 habitats had united under one flag. Begin! Okay, so for those of you who are new to Stellaris, I am told that whatever lack of skill I have as a player, I do make up for in my ability to explain the game. So if you are new to the game, or if you just in general kind of want to know what's going on, feel free to ask questions. I am going to talk about the reason why I'm making particular decisions, but wait a minute. The name of the species is the Nexarian Rum Runners, not Kirox's private stash. That's got to be a bug. Like here's the private stash. Oh, wait, it doesn't matter. No idea what's going on. You've only played some Civ 6, bought the game and some DLC today. Okay, great. So one thing to just keep in mind is that I have been given a key from Paradox, so I am, they don't ask me to sell the game. I mean, you already bought it as well. But that's probably a good one to disclose. And so I love the Civ series. I don't really know if there's any benefit in me stating like what a favorite series is, but if I had one, it would definitely be the Civilization series. So this game is, of the Paradox games, is the most 4X like of them, but this is still a very different game from Civilization. So this is great. If you I'll do what I said I was going to do. I'm just going to explain my overall decisions. You may not necessarily want to build a species like I did before. Or in the earlier step, you might want to try one of the pre-built species, but I'll just try and explain my reasoning. So you start off. It's a little bit. Actually, I was going to say that is quite a bit like Civilization. That's not me trying to play to the audience. But you have sort of a nice big open map, and you've got sort of your first settler, and the start of the game is really just kind of that exploring the map. The reason why I say that this is more like a Civilization game than some of the other Paradox games is that you don't have history to sort of determine the starting conditions of the galaxy, and so as a result, you're in a situation where you're able to just branch out, explore. You can really do. Everybody except for the advanced starts is sort of starting in an even playing field. Whereas if you play Europa Universalis, and you're France, and one player's France, one player's Ulm, you kind of have a guess as to who's going to win most of the time. Utopia, Distant Stars, and Apocalypse. Oh, those are all good ones. Utopia, I think, is kind of considered to be the must-have one. But yeah, no, those are good ones. So the species I'm playing comes from the Megacorps DLC. That is one thing that's going to be different for yours. But And obviously, chat might have some views as to what DLC work. So I don't really have a good algorithm in terms of deciding where to go first. This is a little bit of a choke point for us, so I mean, maybe at some point I want to take Subra, but the other argument might be, it's like, well, I already know I'm going to claim that, so do I need to like look for it right away? Maybe I want to see, where else I can go. What I'll probably do is build a second science ship, so maybe I take one to go up and then one to go down. So here we'll do the sidear system, so we'll survey, then I hold down shift. We'll start by looking at these three. Now, sometimes I try to hold back and sort of game it out so that I buy the scientist right at the second that I need. In this case here, I'll start by building the extra science ship right away. And what else did I want to do? We've taken care of the science ship. So I do start with 100 minerals. Now, this is the first time I've been doing the orbital habitat. So we've got a couple of things that I can do on the orbital habitat. This, by the way, is going to be totally different from the way that your planets work. The overall setup in terms of how different... the overall setup in terms of how this stuff works will be the same, but the... like the buildings are going to be completely different because this is an orbital habitat. So essentially you have pops. Right now we've got 2 available jobs. We can see the ones for which there aren't currently positions. So we've got 2 bureaucrats. That will boost my administrative capacity, which is sort of a limit in terms of how rapidly I can expand. But basically pops are going to grow over time. And I've got 2 available jobs, but eventually I'm going to have more pops than I have jobs available, and I'm going to want to have things for my workers to do. So the first thing I'm doing here is finding out for myself, what do these orbital habitats, like what am I able to build on them? So we have an industrial district. This will turn minerals into consumer goods and alloys. So I'm earning 26 minerals a turn and currently generating 7 consumer goods and 11 alloys. We've got a research district. This will turn consumer goods into research points. So we have a small surplus of consumer goods, but I may want to keep an eye on that. We have a trade district, so this will produce amenities and trade value. Now, I seem to be doing very well for energy credits right now, so the trade value would really be for the amenities and just to double down on an advantage that I already have. And then finally, we have a leisure district. Now, if I recall correctly, we had a special type of sort of lifestyle that we could give our species. So leisure district will produce culture workers, and this will turn consumer goods into unity and society research. Okay, so unity is kind of helpful for those traditions. Now this is a little tricky for me because it means that I've got a division between research and leisure. Now the other thing is that we've got 3 of these, and okay, so it does look like these are different types. So this is an empire capital. On our mining station, again, we've got an industrial district, we've got a trade district, an astro mining bay, which is good for acquiring minerals, and looks like leisure is the same. And then this is a generator. Okay, so basically, it seems like these orbital habitat. I'm starting to remember how the orbital habitats work. You have specialized habitats. I seem to remember there was a way of upgrading them as well. Am I like I'm right in saying that, right? That they're I think there's different tiers of habitat state, so like this one, there should be an overall size. Sorry, like I said, this is new. Actually, here's a good example. So if you ever get stuck, there is the wiki inside the game. So Oh, come on. It's got to explain how it works. Yeah, so we've got orbital habitats, habitat expansion. You can upgrade them, yeah. Built by a construction ship. I guess it doesn't say how we do the upgrade, though. So let's just take a quick look at our construction ship and see that's not the construction ship. Nope, that doesn't do anything. I mean, it's not like I want to upgrade it right away, but I am just trying to get an idea in terms of how many districts I'm limited by. Because again, the thing here is that I don't want to completely ignore leisure, but it's not my most important upgrade right now. The reason why I'm spending so much time thinking about this is that I've got 100 minerals to work with. So, oh god, this stuff is so expensive. It's 500. Okay, so we can't do these upgrades. So this is going to be the first problem I potentially run into. Actually, is because I've got three different stations, each with their own growing population. There's one available job on these two, and then there's my capital, which has 2 available jobs. One of the things that's going to happen is I'm going to have to actually build. Like I'm gonna have to spend about 1,000 in terms of minerals to be able to get these upgrades done. Okay, cool. So I wasn't completely insane doing this. I forget that that you don't get all the decisions right away, that they show up later. Okay, so the only thing that I can be using my 100 minerals right now, and again, this is because of the orbital habitats, are upgrades to these existing planets. So in this case, Dukalex is 3 energy. Now I am generating a fair amount. Of course, energy will allow me to buy other things. Then the alternative is that I can build the minerals, which in theory I'm going to need a little bit more. You know what? I think I am going to start by upgrading the minerals. Oh, that is not the ship that I wanted. So that's our 100 minerals accounted for. Okay, so we've got our science ships scooting around. We've got construction building what we can. We can't do anything to our orbital habitats. So now we're going to pick some tech. So there are some options. You can mess around with your scientists a little bit. This one's resilient, so I may want to switch out somebody who's a better researcher. But the way that it works is that you'll generate a certain amount of research each turn, although this is a real-time game. But basically, I'm earning 28, 25, 25. So roughly the same in terms of research. There's a base cost for each tech. It'll give you an estimate in terms of how long it's going to take. So in this case, it would take me 85 months to research the fusion reactor. And sometimes certain techs will open up different paths. So unlike Civilization, where in general, the tree is sort of fixed, when it comes to Stellaris, you've kind of got more of a card system, and basically more cards become available as you go down certain paths. So one of the more tempting ones for me right now is quantum theory, just because it does give me a bonus towards my existing research. I don't need to upgrade my ships right away. The only other thing that might be interesting is the energy credits from technicians, because if I just take a look at the number of technicians who are working, none on the homeworld. Well, actually, maybe it's not that impressive. So I've got 2 technicians, eventually 3. They're currently generating 8.2 each. That makes me think that this number is wrong. But yeah, if I want to sort of double down on the ability to generate some cash, I could do that upgrade. But in this case here, I think early investment in research is probably where I want to go. Hello, Philly Exir, or sorry, I'm always bad at that name. I'm glad you like. I'm a huge fan myself. I usually tend to go for planetary unification first of all, even above the research techs. And this is just because I kind of like the... basically, I like getting early Unity because that unlocks more traditions that gets me other things. And then finally, generally I'm trying to take the... Okay, here's that advanced habitat I was talking about. Obviously, 755 months is a little bit of a wait. So in this case here, I don't necessarily want the ship upgrades, and we did have a shortage of minerals, so I'm always on the fence about when I go for the mineral improvements because, you know, percent-based bonuses are obviously much larger when you have lots. So in this case here, what is a 10% bonus on all of the mining that I do inside the system? It'll eventually be 1. I think once we upgrade everything... Okay, yeah, we're close to 9 already. So once we get this one, I'll be able to get 1 extra mineral from geothermal fracking. So I don't, like, deliberately avoid them, but if there's an opportunity to sort of kick the can down the road a little bit, get something, you know, something I'll build on a little bit more, I'm a little more willing to put those off. But again, the thing about this one is that there's not necessarily one right way to play these kinds of games. It's more just me unpacking specifically why, you know, it says like, well, you were really into tech there, but you didn't seem to be into tech here. In this case here, this is a tech that I can get faster. I don't need to upgrade my ships, and I do need the minerals a little bit more than I need the energy. So that's the research taken care of. One thing that I didn't always do at the very start was to take a look at my policies and my and some of the rules that I put for my species. It doesn't hurt to take a quick look. So right now we have got mercantile, so using the closed borders, diplomatic action against non-rivals, costs influence per month. I usually want to keep those borders open anyway. Greater diplomatic weight from economy, I'm fine with that. Higher trade value, higher trade protection. I don't want to restrict my wars. I think most of this stuff is fine. I am allowed to have slaves, right? Yes. And currently we're at militarized economy, so this means that right now our consumer goods are producing less than they normally can. Now this isn't like Hearts of Iron in the sense where your population is going to fight back against your policies, so they're not going to like the fact that you're on a war footing for too long. In this case here, if you want to stay on a militarized economy, you can, and it just means that you're taking 25 of the production of consumer goods and putting it towards alloys instead. So in this particular case here, I'm not going to switch back to mixed, but if I find that I'm running a little short on consumer goods and I don't have better options, I will be able to adjust my economic policy. Likewise with civilian, but in this case that would mean that I'm sort of picking the pocket of my military in order to be able to cover my consumer goods costs, which is not ideal. I mean, if I want, I could do fortify the border for an edict. The catch on this one is that I do need influence to be able to expand my territory, so we're not going to do an edict right away. And then finally we've got our species, so we can set our rights, full citizens. Currently we do have decadent lifestyle. This is what I was looking for before, so this is special to my species. We deserve only the best, and they must serve. Sorry, we deserve only the best. They must serve. We must rejoice. So in this case, workers cost less for upkeep, specialists cost less for upkeep, rulers cost more for upkeep. Everybody has a higher consumer goods cost, but our happiness is higher. So if we want, we could do decent conditions, social welfare, stratified economy, but we went for decadent. Decadent lifestyle was a choice, and we're going to stick with it. So I don't want to make any changes here, is essentially what I'm saying there. And you probably could have gone without knowing of the existence of that menu, but we're now ready to unpause. Now, I tend to play this game very slowly. One thing I noticed is that when I go to like the fastest speed, I just tend to crash between like pause and unpause, pause and unpause. So I don't necessarily mind, you know, just being able to have the game sort of run through. First of all, you get to have these nice little scenic moments. You know, you can watch your science ship go out and explore the galaxy. Maybe instead we want to watch the construction ship. Sorry for the blinding lights. You know, maybe we just want to enjoy the scenic view. Gives me a chance to sort of talk about the game. But there's going to be a couple things that I learned. So we did turn over on the month, and we're still getting a surplus of 78 credits, so that's good. Our science ship has also been built, so we get to put another... Thank you very much for the follow. We get a chance to stick another scientist on a ship. So first of all, we're going to recruit one. Now, when I recruit a scientist, I generally try to go for the younger ones. Age does matter inside these games, so if you have an old scientist and you don't do things to extend people's lifespans, all things being equal, the older scientist will last for a shorter period of time. The fact of the matter is, though, it's a 200 energy credit expenditure on something that's going to last about 40 years, let's say. So the fact of the matter is that you're not I do kind of look at this stuff, but it's not actually that big of a deal. Like, you can sort of say, well, but the end of the life is when they have their highest experience, and so you're losing this really talented scientist. It's all true. But it's not the biggest one for me. The reason why I highlight this is because I was talking about maybe getting rid of this physics researcher. This physics researcher currently is resilient. They have an extended life of 25 years. And here we have a researcher who is a specialist in particles, which is a physics research. So you get a 15% research bonus towards those particular technologies. The thing is that they're 40. Well, this guy's 40. Well, no, but this one, practically for comparison, is not 40. They're closer to, I guess, 15. So my other alternatives would be somebody who's a specialist in military theory, or someone who's adaptable, who's the youngest, and they have the highest experience gain. In this case, because I'm going to be sticking them on a ship, I'm actually going to put them... I am going to choose for the leader experience, because science ships are pretty good experience generators, and so somebody who's generating that experience faster may wind up developing other specialties over time. So again, we've got somebody who's looking at sort of this part of the galaxy. What I'm going to do is, it's going to be a weird path, but we're going to explore these parts of the galaxy. So the reason we're checking this out is not just to... so eventually we're going to be looking for this choke point so that we can claim it. I also want to try and get a good view of everything that's going on inside of sort of my little area, simply because this is going to be deciding where I expand next. Once I build, I think it's, in addition to the one I'm building right now, 3 more buildings.
Construction complete.
There we go. So the ISS Irid Rock has completed construction of a mining station in the orbit of Torix. Again, here I'm just taking a look at my resources, and I can say, well, it still looks like, compared to anything... Sorry. Across everything, I can, I can get more energy credits. Well, we're doing okay for energy credits. I can get more minerals. Well, minerals are, at least among the basic resources, my lowest earning right now. And we are going to be getting the percent-based bonus. So, if I can boost up the acquisition, so much the better. It's also going to enable further construction. So in this case here, it seems to make a little bit more sense to build on Darakun. What's the species origin? So we are the Void Dweller, or whatever the name is, and we are a turtle. So we're playing the Trexian Rum Runners. So this is a criminal syndicate. The civics are criminal heritage and corporate hedonism. We're authoritarian militarists. I struggled a lot with this one. Again, Void Dweller's origin. And basically, our criminal enterprises led us to go off-world, and we are the only survivors of the species. The first 90 minutes of the broadcast was working out the backstory for these folks, so... All right, the Grunner. The ISS Irid Fick crew are eager to report that they have uncovered the remains of an ancient spacefaring species on Sidar 6, who appear to have inhabited the planet some 7 million years ago. While it is unclear why this species, who called themselves the Grunner, disappeared from the Sidar system, our scientists have isolated a promising archaeological dig site on their planet. Perhaps further study will yield more clues. Okay, so what you are seeing here is not a bad little example of how Stellaris works. I like to think of Stellaris as just this wonderful canvas, on which you will sort of paint your own science fiction epic. And one major component to this is actually why I think picking up Distant Stars was not a bad idea, is that the events are a really big part of this game. You'll go, you've got your sort of equivalent to the settler unit in Civilization. Not exactly, maybe it's a little closer to like a scout, but you'll have this unit, it goes out into the dark, it's seeking out new worlds and new experiences, and you find things in the dark, you find things in space. And it means that, there's going to be a bunch of events and you can mod it. There's a ton of mod support. I'm not playing any mods, but basically you can, if you feel the old ones are getting stale, there's usually going to be a new DLC with new events, or you can see what the fans have come up with. And so very often you're going to be running into just these different things that happen in the galaxy that'll start sort of messing with your empire a little bit. And in this particular case, we found an archaeological site. Now, if I want, I can actually take this science ship and I can go get it to check out the archaeological site. The catch here is that if I do that, I lose their ability to sort of explore other systems. So while it would be nice to do the archaeology, right now gaining information about my immediate surroundings is a little bit higher. I could decide to try and build another science ship, a third science ship. Actually, that is a little tempting. 3 science ships isn't too bad. But yeah, in this case, we would, what I would probably do is head back and check things out. I think I am going to build that extra science ship, though. So, all right. The Nextrarian Rum Runners are is abuzz with news of the alien remnants that were recently studied. These leavings are considered definitive proof of intelligent, purposeful alien activity at some point in the past. We may still be alone now, but we are at least not the first to be so. Remarkable. Okay, so I'll go to my shipyard, we'll build another science ship, and this is, I think the first thing I'm going to do is send them off to the archaeological site, but they're just going to increase the rate at which we sort of unlock different parts of the map. So, in an older version of this game, it used to be a common strategy for people to take sort of their military fleets and they just sort of spread them out across the galaxy. If you try and explore, if you try to go into like an unknown system with anything but a science ship, it'll just block you from doing that. And I think that was the right call because, again, like the point of the early part is the whole space exploration thing, right? All right, first contact protocols. Our recent encounter with alien life forms has reignited and made suddenly more urgent the old debate about how we should approach contacting any potentially intelligent alien civilizations we may meet. While some advocate focusing on establishing friendly relationships as quickly as possible by contacting them with a message of peace, others advise caution, pointing out that we cannot know whether alien minds bear ill intent towards us and that it would be unwise to let them know too much about us before it is necessary. A third, more radical group push for preemptive action against them. With the security of all Rexari at risk, they say, we dare not hesitate to take whatever measures necessary to gain the upper hand against any potential Xeno threat. So in this case here, I mean, we are looking for new customers for our product, so we shall greet the Xeno with open arms. Policy on first contact protocol is set to proactive. This policy has the following effects. You cannot attack neutral entities, other empires will find it easier to establish communications with us, and we gain 50% more influence from each successful first contact process. It also improves the discovery speed. So we say, wise to be contact, first contact target difficulty +2, and then we must ward off those. This is basically you get to be more warlike at the start. But in this case here, I don't actually want to start wars. I want to try and find people that I can sell products to. So we'll wait for the ship to finish. It'll tell you here, so it's just a month away. We will have to buy another researcher for it, but I'm not too worried about it. Again, I'm going to probably send them straight off to the archaeological site. Okay. We can pause. So, these are all... So, now it's maybe a little bit more tempting for me to try and consider research alternatives. I think what I'm going to do is I'll still go for the young one. Voidcraft is a pretty helpful one for me, though. So what I'll do is they'll start off on the science ship, but when I need to research a... Oh, that's right. I got to be inside. I need to own that before I can do anything with it. Well, that's fine. We'll just explore. But yeah, so the basically when I have research that requires that specialization, I'll just flip the scientists out. I usually tend to forget to do that sort of thing, but I'll find a way of managing it. So I want to keep a little bit of an eye on my alloys because I am going to need alloys to expand to another system. My construction ship's obviously going to be used to, build other things.
Boom! We built something.
Actually, you know what? I really don't need the energy, so stop that. So we'll do the science first, and then we'll go to the next world. Again, it's just in terms of obviously having lots of money is really nice because you can buy more stuff, but given that I'm generating over twice as much compared to my minerals, and given that I am already going to be getting a percent-based bonus on physics research, kind of makes sense to try and put a little more effort there. All right, the Habitable World Survey. We now know without a doubt that a thriving biosphere is not something unique to Kirlox's private stash, which I think we figured that out by virtue of the fact that our species made it. Both the scientific community and the public at large are eager to learn more about the various forms of alien life throughout the galaxy. Efforts to catalog the life forms we encounter are already underway, but our xenobiologists have urged us to focus our planetary survey efforts on habitable, life-bearing worlds. So I do kind of like that we got this when we did, because sometimes I'll get this after I've already explored a couple of habitable worlds. So we can say a commendable initiative, or we have more important matters to focus on. Now, influence is not always the easy... Influence is probably one of the more... I don't want to say the more difficult, because you can mess around with the politics of your species to get more of it. But it's definitely a little bit more constrained in terms of your ability to get it. So sometimes saying that we've got more important things to do is a good choice. And for this species, you might make an argument for wanting to do that simply because we're not really going to be making the most of those worlds. However, I do believe you get some science bonuses for finishing this chain. And more importantly, in general, I just find the event chains a little more interesting to do. So we will say a commendable initiative. Now, again, because we know, at least a few... The other thing is that I know a few people here will... be new to the game, and I'm thinking maybe some more of the lurkers. I say this because I know somebody who recently got this game, so it's like, yeah, I want to watch your stream because I really don't know what's going on. So I'm always a little conscious of the fact that just because somebody isn't speaking, it doesn't mean that there aren't some questions. Now that I got that preface out of the way, I completely forgot what I was going to say. I was talking about just overall priorities, what I'm gaining, what I'm losing. Nope, I lost it. It's not the end of the world, though. Right now, we're just in a little bit of a holding pattern while these ships kind of continue their exploration. There is a little bit of an incentive for me to claim this system right away because I'll be able to send someone to do the archaeological dig. The other priority would be to take this system because it brings me closer to a choke point. All right. If I want to build a new, platform, like if I want to expand out, if you ever, a good rule for games like this is that if you don't know how to do something, just mouse over it. It will usually explain what's going on. And in this case here, you can build a starbase, and for us, it's a cost of 100 alloys. So if I want to build something else, like a new science ship, I always want to make sure that I have 100 alloys in reserve. And this is because I know I'm going to want to claim the Cider system so that I can do the archaeology. And I'm very likely going to want to claim the, I think it's the Subra system, because that brings me closer to just something that I can defend a little more easily against enemies. What I mean by that is that imagine that we're at war. Right now, the enemy could come in and they could attack from Subra, or they could attack from the Stellaris. And in fact, if I have everything as it is right now, they would actually also be able to sort of invade from this side here. Now, because I only own one planet or one system, that's not the biggest problem because all of my defenses are sort of concentrated in that area anyway. But obviously I do plan on expanding out, and so being able to, I mean, it's just like any strategy game, right? If you're able to funnel the enemy through one area and then harden that point, you're going to have an easier time defending yourself. And there used to be a couple of FTL technologies in the old version of the game that would allow you to sort of circumvent those kinds of defenses. But that's not really in the game anymore, so generally finding choke points is a good way of handling things. So, this is the first time we've been able to go purely into the new tradition screen, so let's select a new one. So adaptability, let's just start by looking at what the immediate benefits of these things are. So adaptability will lower my housing usage. Diplomatic grants, well, I mean, so a diplomatic route isn't necessarily the worst for us because we want to keep friendly relations with our neighbors and then just raise the crime on their planets by a whole lot. Discovery is very tempting because of the increase to the anomaly research speed. Also, this is not as so. Generally in 4X style games, it's usually like just keep going, keep pushing on tech, and you'll win. It's not quite as heavy on this one if you actually start taking a look at some of the benefits. So for instance here, anomaly research speed, and map the stars, the ability to automate your science ships, to boldly go. Well, again, survey speed goes up. You're disengaged for your science ships. Research alternatives is a little bit better. In this sense here, you get another card to draw each time when you're picking text, so you have more options. Databank uplinks. In that case, this is where you start thinking about the more science-oriented benefits. So in this case here, you get an improvement. You get a bonus towards your research, basically, and an edict that does that. Polytechnic education, so this is more about your leaders. And then finally, faith and science, that will reduce the cost of your researchers. So in principle, you can hire more and not see the same sorts of costs. But yeah, the actual research speed bonus only comes once you get all of these, so it does help to actually see what's going on. Now, I'm rather partial to expansion. So colony development speed plus 25%. Now, we're not making colonies because, of course, we're building our orbital habitats. The influence cost is reduced by 10, so that's still kind of tempting. And then, of course, there's the bonus towards new colonies and that. But the fact of the matter is we're probably not going to be expanding very quickly. Domination, again, it's kind of hard to see how this is the most important thing for me to be doing right now. The alloy upkeep for habitat is not, it's helpful. So apparently we're spending 15 on buildings. If those are all habitats, then we're going to be seeing, I don't know, about another 3 alloys a month. But it's kind of hard to say that, obviously domination is a little bit more focused around other species. So seeing as we don't see other species. So discovery is definitely one. It's a little bit like diplomacy, right? Like generally you want to see something else in space before you work on that. So again, I tend to like doing expansion fairly early, but it doesn't make as much sense for the species. Harmony. This does improve leader lifespans. I don't really think I need the extra edicts and all of that, though. Mercantile. Now this is not bad. So this is something that would improve my trade, and trade will translate to more energy credits. Consumer benefits and marketplace of ideas, trade policies, which allow us to convert a portion of our trade value into consumer goods or unity. Boosts to trade values and market fees. Okay, tempting, but we're not quite at that point yet. Prosperity, on the other hand, mining station output, that's a big one for us. Building upkeep reductions. Build costs. Yeah, so prosperity and discovery are two really tempting ones right now. Subterfuge, it's... I mean, again, we don't really know of other species right now, so it's kind of hard to see why espionage would be important. Likewise, supremacy, I mean, at the very least, we've got things like pirates and whatever hostile entities we discover out in space. So you can make a small argument for that, but only a small one. So let's just break it down between discovery and prosperity. The immediate bonus for prosperity is the 20% on mining stations. The long-term benefit is percent-based bonuses for base resources. And then discovery does have some percent-based bonuses, but we get to draw new things from the deck. We do get an increased... Okay, no, discovery seems to be the right call here. Again, it's just so that I can clear out the map a little bit
Anomaly
faster.
found.
Oh, there we
Hey,
go.
can we monetize this?
Unexpected emissions are coming from underground caves on Vestalius 2. Could these be a signal of some sort? Now, remembering that I was originally going to take this ship and send it on archaeology, it's not a big deal to me that it's going to be tied up for about a year. So we will research this anomaly. It's a very high level one relative to the researcher, so that's why it's going to take a long time for them to work on it. But once they finish, we'll have something that happens, and then we'll fly through the rest of the system.
Prospect analyzed.
All right, so the Subra system has been fully surveyed, and the last thing they found, the atmospheric patterns of Subra 4 are highly atypical for a gas giant of modest size. So in this case here, it makes sense to research it. It's a level 1, so this is much more in line with what the ship wants.
Boom. We built something.
I'm really just getting the energy from this system, so it's not the most exciting option. However, it is also the one that I'm unambiguously going to want in terms of defense. So I'm going to build the platform there anyway. The one thing that's nice about this is that the starbase, it'll cost me the 100 alloys. We basically were 3 months away from being able to build that expansion. The upkeep is 1, but that'll already be paying for itself in terms of the energy. If we can find a system that has more minerals, though, that would be nice. One thing I'll do as well, I am eventually going to add more... ships, but... What we had assumed was an abnormally small gas giant is in fact not. Beneath a deceptive cover of thick dust swirling in its upper atmosphere lies a regular planet. A barren planet, but a planet nonetheless. This has proven quite embarrassing to the astronomical community on Kiriox's private stash. So it's now revealed to be a barren planet. We get the experience. So they've already leveled up. More importantly, it has precious minerals, so we're going to be able to expand out and claim those over time. So one consideration that I'm going to have as a megacorp is the fact that my administrative capacity is quite a bit smaller than what a normal empire would be. essentially what administrative capacity is going to do, you generate empire sprawl for a certain number of things. Basically, empire sprawl is a measure of how large your empire is. And if your empire sprawl is larger than your administrative capacity, you are going to start seeing certain things cost more. Generally, well, actually, it tells you on the tooltip: technologies, traditions, leaders, edicts, and campaigns.
Prospect analyzed.
All right, so Cider is not the most exciting system that I could get, but we are, again, doing very well for energy credits. So, it is possible to play this game and ignore the empire sprawl, but what you are generally going to find is that your empire stagnates, because if you see huge costs to your, if you start seeing huge costs to your science, you're just not going to be able to keep up. One thing I do want to keep an eye on here is my minerals. So again, this is just taking a look at what my, what my species is up to.
We built something.
All right, so Subra system's done. I think in this case here, I'm going to build the mining station. So we're paying for it. We have to pay the 100 minerals. We're not close to expanding out. But again, what I want to do here is just keep an eye on these stations and their populations to make sure that we don't... I want to make sure that we don't run into a situation where we... how'd I put it? I don't want to discover that we have... we don't have enough jobs for people. I think the crime is unavoidable at this point. I do want to deal with the amenity situation, but it looks like this is just because we haven't filled enough of the worker roles.
I found something.
Okay, what's going on here? So, a small docking hatch leading to the interior of this asteroid is visible at the rim of a small crater on its surface. The hatch was likely concealed once, but it has since been exposed by micrometeorite impacts. So it's a challenging one. It's level 3 on a level... I thought it was level 2. No, it's level 1. But we'll get them to do the research. Again, our construction ship has enough to do right now, so I don't mind having more of my science ships sitting, not exactly idle, but following through on some of these, some of this exploration, simply because I know, not only do I know what my upgrade in Subra is going to be, but I know where my next expansion is going to be, purely for the archaeological dig. Fungal emitters. Below the surface of Vestalius 2 lives a most peculiar organism. Scans and samples show that it is some sort of mycelium littered with spores. Compared to the traditional size of the spores on our homeworld, these are massive. Their surface is a shimmering kaleidoscope, and the hues seem to change based on their surroundings. The strangest thing about them is that they seem to form a network capable of generating what the science crew believes could be a signal. The current emissions are very weak, but with some effort, it might be possible to find out where they lead. Alright. So, we can try to identify the signal destination, bring them back to be sold, or we don't have time for this. It's always fun to...
Log updated.
To go down the rabbit hole. And you'll notice here, this is now a special project, so I'm just going to hit Control-Shift so I can put it at the top of the queue.
Construction complete.
And we'll research this project. Okay, that's my construction ship finishing, so we might as well cover some of the energy costs. Planet's capital building is ready to be upgraded. Okay, so that's going to be another big hit for mineral. Oh, this is interesting, actually. So it's a big cost for minerals, but it is going to wind up giving me more bureaucrats and such. It also decreases the crime, so it's actually probably a good idea for me to ignore any further upgrades here. Well, this is a hard one, right? Like, this mining station, it might actually make sense for me to build the Astro Mining Bay. Yeah. I need 24, so we need one more month on that, but... So the logic behind this one is that I'm investing in my ability to generate more minerals, and the hope is that we'll be able to upgrade this capital before... Actually, you know what? There's a flaw in that logic. So, in principle, that was the right call. In practice, I actually need pops to work those mineral slots. And so I'm not necessarily going to be generating minerals at a faster pace. So I may still be left holding the bag on unemployment in the Habitat Central Control. That's fine. I'm sticking with the decision, though. A large portion of asteroid DSS-3PO has been hollowed out to allow for the construction of some kind of shipyard. It has been abandoned and exposed to the vacuum of space for centuries. If anything useful remained, it has already been looted by previous explorers. The design of the shipyard itself is unique, however, and much could potentially be learned by its study. So this doesn't give me a direct benefit in terms of, like, not every event is going to say, you know, you get energy credits or you get minerals or whatever. Sometimes what will happen is you will get an event like this which changes the system that you're looking at. So I only really get the benefit of this event if I actually claim this system, which I probably will, but... Okay, so one option that I have, if I want to keep my construction ship doing things, is I can spend money on resources. Generally, I don't like having idle resources like this, so it's actually two things. We've got lots, so in this case, I'm going to spend a full 1,000. I don't know why I thought that was the construction ship, but I was really confused for a little while. And we still have a nice big surplus of minerals, so you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Now we've just bought ourselves a new capital. So one thing you can do is go to the market and you can just outright buy things. It'll tell you the rates at which things can be bought and sold. So now, after the activity in the market, minerals cost 1.54 per unit. I can sell them at 0.83. 1.3 for food, 0.7 for to sell it, 2.6 to buy, and 1.4 to sell consumer goods, and then alloys are the most expensive. So there are different ways that you can get better rates, but generally the more you buy of a particular good, the more expensive it becomes. The more you sell of a particular good, the less you get for it, and so on. Okay, so I think to boldly go makes the most sense. I should have read the description first. So our curiosity about the universe is what got us this far, and there's still so much left to discover. So we can say to boldly go, a new age of exploration is upon us. As we once mapped the surface of our homeworld, we must now brave new terrain. Brave new terrain. Space. There's a galaxy full of wonder waiting to be discovered. Alternatively, we've got Science Division, and the advantage for this one is that I get to draw another card on the research, but in this case I think the survey speed is the better of the two options right now. So once we're done in the Subra system, I'll go and claim the Sidar system so that this research ship will go and work on the archaeological site. Although this system is quite tempting because of its extra mineral wealth. So maybe I'll hold off on that archaeological site for a little bit longer. I guess it depends how long it takes the construction ship to finish its job. We also have 279 for alloys, so one thing that is helpful is to kind of make sure that you're keeping on top of your military. So we know we have more than enough for our expansion plans, so I'll slowly start adding corvettes in. Now, I do sometimes play a little bit of a game of chicken with this for the simple reason that ships do cost you resources. So the longer you hold it off, the longer those resources are... or the longer you're building stockpiles of those resources. But, I mean, again, the possibility of getting caught flat-footed is a bit of a... that's a easy way to kind of be kept honest. And in this case, I am moving to the Sidar system to build. Again, if the science ship may get the job done early, we can watch the ships as they fly through. But I am running a Megacorp, MJ Stevens. It's a criminal enterprise, though. It's the first time I've done criminal enterprise since Megacorps was released, so something new for me. Also, the first time I've really used... I've done habitats
Research
before, but ones
complete.
that I'd sort of captured, so there's a couple new things. All right, following the fungi. Tracking the signal emitted by the mycelium proved to be a tricky business, despite the best efforts of Gufarl. It was impossible to determine the destination of the signal, and the mycelium mostly remains a mystery. Despite this, we managed to learn a lot in the process, and the data is being brought back as we speak. So I think that's a failed event, but in this case we did get 629 social research for our trouble. Well, we're close. Not full Jabba the Hutt, but we're a mean-looking customer.
Anomaly detected.
A Class 12 asteroid orbits this planet. The small planetoid's orbit appears too stable for its presence to be a natural occurrence. How close are we to finishing? It's only 2 months. When I changed my mind, I am going to actually sit in the middle here. We're reasonably close to finishing
Found.
the system.
Hey,
So
can we monetize this?
we are picking up life signs coming from somewhere within the interior of this asteroid. This definitely warrants a closer investigation. So this is, again, another shorter one. So you can sort of see how I was talking about how a lot of this game is the sort of events, almost the interruptions, but I don't like interruptions makes them sound bad, but you have sort of your big sort of macro picture of your empire and how you're going to achieve your goals, and then you have these individual things that you'll encounter in various different systems, and those don't lend themselves to as direct of a mapping to some of the other 4X style games. All right, towed asteroid. For some reason, someone has towed an asteroid into a stable orbit around Myox 7. The massive engine sections and braking thrusters can still be found on the surface, although they have long since been rendered inoperable. Whoever did this also mined the asteroid for minerals, but those operations were seemingly abandoned shortly after they began. So this gives us engineering research, but we don't get a direct benefit from it. I am wondering if there's any sense in me trying to upgrade this building right now. We do have a big shortfall in terms of amenities. Let's go for it. Amazingly, while conducting their survey of YZ9728, the crew of the ISS Arid Fick picked up several life signs coming from within the asteroid. There appears to be a colony of large burrowing worm-like lithivores within the rock, which has been riddled with tunnels. These unique life forms have somehow adapted to a life in the coldness of space. So these creatures should be studied, and we get another research bonus. So this is becoming a relatively attractive science system. The other thing I'm noting is just the shape of the hyperlanes. So this would have been kind of an obvious entryway anyway. This definitely complicates things, though. So this looks like it does go out to the rest of the galaxy. You know, this sort of complicates defensive plans. I'm really not quite sure how I'm going to work out my defenses here, but fortunately we haven't found anybody who hates us yet, so I might get a small reprieve. I also haven't made a decision yet about what I want to do here. Like, there's a side of me that says I probably should invest in the industrial district before I do research. I mean, I kind of have to, don't I? Again, that's a tomorrow me problem to worry about.
Planetary exploitation forecast complete.
The material composition of this asteroid differs significantly from its neighbors. It likely has a different origin than the other bodies from this asteroid belt and should be investigated more closely. And we did get the... So this system is now explored. Pretty good one. So 6 minerals, 4 energy, and 3 engineering. One comment I will make is that just measuring the minerals here, it's a good, like, sort of... It's a good number to use as a benchmark. But this is very valuable, right? So in this case, I'm spending 100... Sorry, I gotta get the system first. So we'll build the starbase. So in this case here, we're going to spend 1 energy to build a mine there, and we're going to get 6 minerals in return. And then we can contrast this to the mining station that I built within my borders here, where I'm spending the same amount of energy in order to get 2. So not every, even when you look at these numbers, not necessarily every system is the same, although generally you're going to have enough energy to kind of exploit everything. And if you want to see what your existing systems have, so this is just things that are not exploited yet. If you hold the Alt key, it'll show you what you currently have in your system. All right, asteroid fossils. Fossils from what appear to be several species of aquatic animals have been found on the barren and airless surface of 133D-109D. There are indications that the surrounding asteroid belt was created from the remains of a shattered planet, and these findings seem to confirm that theory. Judging by the fossils, the planet supported life and was at least partially covered by water. So that gave me just a straight, social research amount. So if we compare our technologies, I guess it's too small to see. That or even, well, I guess you can see the engineering.
Resource scan complete.
The engineering is not as far advanced as the physics and the social. Physics, I think that's because we've got a higher amount, so we've got 5 more a month. Whereas social, we've had a few events that have sort of helped us catch up. Okay, so we're still kind of on track in terms of what we were trying to do. This system wasn't all that impressive. Now, one thing that is easy to overlook in these systems, I do this all the time, is that this game does have sort of a variation on terrain.
We built something.
I'm just going to take a second here, and so this was us just finishing our space station. So what we'll do now is we'll exploit or mine the minerals. So, in addition to just looking very pretty, some of these different systems do have different modifiers. So in this case here, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, this has got a sublight speed reduction. So things move slower inside this area. So environmental effects and hazards affect all fleets inside of the system. They are usually caused by the system star due to it being inside of a nebula. In addition, so because this is a nebula, there's also a building called a nebula refinery, which you can build, which will give you access to additional minerals. So while this system on its own isn't very attractive with just the 3 physics, although again, there are some reasons why I might want this for strategic purposes. It is a gateway to my home system, or my capital system. I can actually build a better spaceport here, or a better base, and it will allow me to get a few more minerals than I would from any other upgrade that I could build. All right, Nile 2A. The ISS Irid Fick has discovered a previously unknown strategic resource on Nile 2A dubbed volatile motes. These preternatural particles contain a tremendous amount of energy, which could be exploited in energy production, as fuel, or even as explosives. While we do not yet possess the means to extract this resource, we should seriously consider establishing control over the system for future exploitation. So this is something that I'm going to need the technology for, but it's good to know. You know, it's one of these things here, because not everything that you do is going to happen immediately. It's helpful to sort of take a long view of certain actions. So for instance, I was saying, yeah, it would be really nice for me to put more in terms of researchers, but it's very clear here that as time goes by, I'm going to need more consumer goods, and I don't have a ready supply of them. So the reality is that I'm going to wind up building a factory before I'm going to build another research station. In fact,
construction complete.
Let's just get that done now. Okay, so I got a couple options ahead of me right now. I don't exactly need the energy. The extra engineering might be nice. So the question would be, do I continue to develop Minoc, or do I go to SIDAR? In this case, I will develop Minoc at least for its
analyzed.
research station.
Technology
we may do
acquired.
some other things later, though. An unusually deliberate geometric configuration of minerals drills through the debris belt by DTLF 285 and is possibly of alien origin. So we'll research that. And we finished our first research job. So ancient warring tribes, historical nations in conflict, now united in empire. We must not, will not crumble. So remember how we had that tradition screen that came up? The thing that's paying for those traditions is unity. This is one of the reasons I like the planetary unification tech. So we'll do new research. And there's a few things that we can do here. So again, we don't have that research that gives me another draw from the deck. So we've got 3 options. We've got food processing, which in addition to giving me the food processing facility building, does unlock farming subsidies. Now at the moment we're generating 29 food, so we're okay. And of course space is very tight on the habitats. So I probably am not going to get food processing right away. Genome mapping, on the other hand, is very tempting because that will give me a bonus to pop growth speed. There's a couple of, well, I've got at least one station which is in need of some more workers. And then in general, right, the more hands you have to work, the faster you're going to grow. So it does mean that I need to be a little more careful in terms of managing all of those different jobs because we're going to fill up on our space very quickly. But I think there's some good reasons why we would want our pop growth speed to go up. Alternatively, I do have adaptive bureaucracy. It does make my administrative capacity go up by 5%. The real drawback there is that it does take longer, so it costs 500 social research more, so 38 months versus 47 months. You don't exactly want to add another year unnecessarily to your research. And I can definitely see why having more workers would be desirable. So we are going to go for genome mapping. Okay, science ship. We already finished the Nile system. I was hoping that I'd get a little more clarity about where I wanted to check things out. So I think I'm going to clean up these areas here, and then we're going to move. We'll check these out. So the reason I'm doing this, we'll see whether or not we actually finish the research in this system, because most likely what's going to happen is I'm going to move into the Sidar system for the archaeology. And we're at 299 in terms of alloys, so it's time to add another Corvette. Again, we've got enough for 2 new space stations, but you'll notice we're not generating 11 alloys anymore. We are generating 10, and that's partly due to the maintenance costs. So on Minoc, again, I'm going to try and go for the engineering research just again so we can get the tech a little bit faster, and then I think I am going to expand out to Sidar. We'll take the energy, and then we'll move back to Minoc. Okay, another tradition. So we could get a bonus towards research station output, or we could get another draw from the deck. Honestly, both are very tempting. I think for this one I am going to do the science division. So the number of science and medical officers has been increased throughout the fleet, organized into a special science division. To support this corps of officers, new training programs have greatly accelerated the rate at which we commission new science officers. So research into alternatives is increased by 1, and then the scientist level cap has been increased by 2, but we're nowhere near that cap, so we don't need to worry about it. One thing I was meaning to say earlier, I have, when I'm explaining my reasoning on some things, obviously I've talked about concepts that nobody who's playing this game for the first time could be expected to know. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that if you're playing Stellaris, you've kind of signed up for a game that you are going to be playing likely for hundreds of hours. Obviously, if you don't enjoy the game, you're not going to be doing that. But for me, at least, part of the fun has been to see new events and just see what happens, and then change my behavior in future playthroughs. But I did point out this wiki here. So remember how I said that, let's imagine a scenario here. I don't actually plan on taking this system anytime soon. This is a little bit more attractive to me because it's got that engineering and social research, and again, physics is sort of taking off. Let's say for a moment here, it's like, okay, I want to actually come up with a fair accounting of what I'm giving up by not taking this system right away. So one thing that you could do would be, I think it's Nebula Refinery. Again, you need to know about the existence of this thing, but apparently not. But if I click on Starbase, I bet it'll be there. Can I expand this window? No, that's a shame. Okay, so basically you can, there's a difference between, let me just close this for a second here. I've got a Starbase like this, so this is just a regular station. Can't really do anything with it, but you do get the option of upgrading it to a starport. I don't need to do that though, because I already have a starport here in my home system, or capital system. Where are you? This thing. So this is what I've been building all my Corvettes with. So the thing that allows me to do that is this shipyard upgrade here. It also has a trade hub and a crew quarters. So I'm not actually going to do it, but basically I could replace the crew quarters with something else. The crew quarters gives me a 25% reduction in costs for docked ships. So this is a nice thing to have my fleet, and it keeps my costs down. But if I felt, if I was running short on food, I could build the hydroponics bay. If I was running out of space to hold all my resources, resource silos, there's even some more combat-oriented ones. And as with pretty much everything, you can get new upgrades. You can improve things. So we don't have access to it right now, but a fair accounting of the resources available to this system would be the Nebula Refinery. So this is, again, we're looking at a starbase. So modules, no, is it modules? I can never remember the division. No, it is building. Okay. So if we scroll down, it'll say it's a black hole observatory. If you want to guess what feature you need for that. Nebula Refinery. So icon kind of gives you a hint. So in this case, it's plus 10 minerals. What I didn't realize was it actually also gives you exotic gas. So what I maybe just want to highlight is that in some cases, systems that seem to be there are like not all systems are created equal. So Nile is good for its strategic resource, but is otherwise not very interesting. There are not a lot of planets here. None of them are ones that I'm able to colonize. Just in general, it's a choke point and it has a strategic resource. That's why it's interesting. But sometimes the benefits are not necessarily obvious. So one way of thinking about Vestalius is not its 3 physics or its convenient location, but it's also the option to gain 10 minerals. Which in this case we have been growing in terms of our ability to get more resources, but it is still worth kind of keeping in mind that minerals are going to be a little bit of a shortfall just because we are continuing to build up our habitats. Okay, careless pieing. According to a report from the crew of the ISS Lorod Kirax, their mission was a failure. Science officer Durbaxa allegedly took manual control of the probe sent to retrieve a sample from the cluster, resulting in a collision between the drone and the mineral cluster. That, while mild, resulted in the mineral cluster breaking apart completely. The crew is careful to note that the experience has left Science officer Durbaxa somewhat shaken, and the mineral shards could still be of some value. So we could say its parts are equal to the sum of its parts. So Durbaxa gains the carefree trait, and we gain a whole lot of minerals, which is pretty tempting for me. Or we could say the Natraxian rum runners find such carelessness unacceptable. Now it seems to me that if we're a bunch of, if we're the intergalactic speakeasy, it would seem that we're going to be more carefree than stubborn. So we get the resources one way or the other. So its parts are the sum of its parts. And this means that we have a little more wriggle room as far as our upgrades are concerned. So we're continuing to build the industrial district. We've already got our upgraded... I suppose what I want to look at right now... Now, you know what? We're fine. So I was wondering if maybe I wanted to do another reactor district, but let's hold that off. Okay.
Technology acquired.
I'll wait for later before we investigate that one. And we got a new tech. So our 20% bonus for physics research, exploring the mediation of fundamental forces through subatomic particles. Okay, so administrative AI is pretty much a default option for me here. We could get a 10% bonus to research station output. We could, go for some slightly higher tech stuff. This is a nice bonus towards my energy, but a flat 5% bonus to research speed from administrative AI seems to be a good fit. So, and of course, it's a physics is one of my better research fields. So, okay, as promised, we're going to move up to the Sidar system. So we are, we were getting a little short on energy credits for a bit. I always have the option of building on these, but right now I do want to gain access to the archaeological site, just so we can get a clearer idea, or just so we can start getting some of the advantages. We've got something of a clear idea of the surrounding area. We don't have a lot of obvious defense plans, but we do have a few systems that I can take just for their resources. So, okay, B97. Caught in an orbit around B97 is a small unknown object moving at such high speed that beggars belief. Okay, so one possible note for expansion. Oh, no, looks like, yeah, so there's a hyperlane that goes here. I was just going to say, if this was isolated like this except up here, maybe I don't want the choke point to be here or here, but maybe I want the choke point to be here. But again, we're not really going to know exactly how far out we want to go. We are going to be constrained by our Empire sprawl, but we're really not going to know what systems are high priority claims until we sort of see how all the hyperlanes sort of connect into each other. And of course, that's the reason for having a bunch of science ships. So I should comment, I do normally go for 3 hours, and we are getting close to the end of that. I know a large part of this episode was on species creation, but I thought I should at least telegraph when I'm going to wrap up. This is going to be a regular Monday feature, so usually the first stream is a little bit more limited in terms of its setup. I am going to do the same thing that I did on YouTube, which is to make a playlist dedicated to this. So as they continue to get updated as I continue to do more episodes, I'll be sure to upload them to YouTube. So anybody who wants to watch this from the beginning has the option. They should be easy to find. But given that I'm going to be wrapping up in a little while, and I do have a tendency to go over, so if if we really get caught into a thing, I'll go longer. But I did want to just leave it open for any other questions or any other comments that people might have before I wrap up and we possibly, I hope you stick around for some of the other stuff, but, for people who just want to see Stellaris, I'm obviously happy to try and answer some of the Stellaris-specific stuff before the closing. Okay, Orbital Speed Demon. Attempts to scan the object in high-speed orbit of B97 have been unsuccessful. The object quickly falls below B97's horizon, and the ISS Lorod Kirax's instruments are simply unable to keep up. While B97's gravitational pull is strong, that alone does little to explain the object's extreme momentum. Either the object itself possesses some extraordinary properties, or there's some gravitational phenomena at work here. The object's velocity appears to be increasing over time, and Science Officer Durbaxa suspects that it may soon be thrown out of orbit, even without outside interference. So we could try to slow it down, we could attempt to halt it, or we can get away from it. Let's try to slow it down. Speed Demon halted. The drone successfully intercepted the unknown object's orbit. By latching onto the object and then thrusting in reverse little by little, the drone was eventually able to direct it to the ISS Lorod Kirax for retrieval. The object looks to be some sort of box, constructed of alien material. Vein-like ridges meander along its sides, congregating at the top in some sort of sphere-shaped mechanism. We can only guess as to its contents. Of course we're going to open it. There might be treasure.
Log updated.
Oh wait, that's 58 months. Yeah, we're gonna wait on that. At the very least, I'll get my administrative AI. Okay, we're at 196. We should be already building this starbase, so we're ready to build another Corvette. Again, this is just the same logic that you would apply in a civilization game, which is that if you completely ignore your military when you do encounter a new civilization, all of that effort that you put into building, you know, nice factories and such, you're going to just seem like such a tasty conquest target. Oh, actually, there was one other thing I was going to mention.
Prospect analyzed.
If we check out victory, either we're doing very well or there's not a lot of species in this on this map. All right, we have detected life signs coming from somewhere beneath the barren and lifeless surface of this planet. What manner of organism could possibly live here? So, research. Oh, I am curious what my planet preference for my species is. Oh, habitat, of course.
Construction complete.
Okay, so now I get to sort of redirect some ships towards... I get to redirect some ships towards Sidar. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to finish building these mining stations. And at that point, we should have a clear idea of where I want to expand. Now, there's no rule saying that I need to take adjacent systems. It's actually possible for me. So I'll use Nial as an example. I could say building a starbase. But notice here it says I'm lacking 23 in terms of... actually, is there a way that yeah. So notice here it says 150 influence. Contrast that to the Lishval system, which only requires 75. There's a penalty for sort of jumping the queue. So in this case, I personally don't really see a benefit for jumping ahead. I do see the AI does it sometimes, so there might be something that I'm missing. But personally, it's not an option I ever take because I just find influence so tricky to get a hold of. All right, some kind of burrowing silicon-based life form inhabits a vast network of tunnels beneath the barren surface of Ilum 3. As best as we can tell, the creatures feed off rocks, and there is evidence to suggest they possess a rudimentary form of intelligence. Their tunneling efforts have shuffled large amounts of valuable minerals to the surface. Intriguing. So another +3 on minerals. I guess another reason to take the ILM system in addition to the archaeological site.
This tech had better generate some revenue.
All right.
Resource scan complete.
Geothermal fracking. New fracking techniques will allow us to tap into previously unattainable pockets of geothermal resources deep beneath the planet's crust. So we're at 44, and in a month's time we'll see what that number turns into. Now, engineering. So I could do coil gun, which is a little more focused on the military. I did say if I ignore my military, then somebody's just going to beat me up and take my lunch money. Cheapest tech that I have available would be 0G refineries, which would boost my mining station output. It also gives me the Nebula refinery, so that's access to that 10 minerals that I was talking about earlier. Alternatively, we go for nanomechanics, and we get a 20% bonus towards our engineers. And this is a tough one for me. I think I'm actually going to go for the engineering research. And the reason why I'm doing that is right now I have the influence to build one more starbase. So the immediate gains of the Nebula refinery are not as clear. And I'm doing okay for energy and minerals right now. So the 10% bonus is something that I can just realize a little bit later as well. So. Okay, I'm going to have a sip of tea and then I think... Oh, the Jinkath system is done. So we're going to ignore this little bit of research and we are going to focus on the archaeological dig. So, Gruner ruins, the remains of what is believed to be an ancient administrative complex belonging to a spacefaring species who called themselves the Gruner, has been found on Sidar 6. This fallen civilization appears to have inhabited the planet a staggering 7 million years ago, and our archaeologists are eager to uncover their secrets. So, I think this is for every game. I may be mistaken, but at least I've seen them. There's usually one species where you'll basically you'll get to hear the story of a species that's come before. It's like the precursor event chain, and there are some really neat ways that this game will allow
I found something.
Some of the precursors actually do influence events at the end of the game. I don't really want to unpack it any more than that, because to me, I was really excited when it happened. But they definitely go some interesting places with it. You also get to learn a little bit about one of them. You get to find out the origin of one of the special resources inside the strategic resources in the game. So I don't know. There's just it's fun stuff to sort of unpack and see where it goes. But what was I trying to say? Generally, you'll want to follow this chain because at the end, so it's difficult to do. They're high difficulty anomalies, and sometimes you won't have access to the systems. Sometimes, other stuff will get in the way. But as a whole, the precursor event chain is a long one. The story is usually interesting, but it does... One thing I tend to notice is you wind up with a system with lots of good resources inside of it at the end. So there's always a gameplay mechanic reason to follow some of this stuff. Okay, a small rectangular object on the surface of this planet is deflecting all scanning beams like a mirror. Our sensors are unable to determine its material composition, so we'll research that. The science ship is on its way, and then the other two are going to take care of their analysis duties. As for us, I think I can afford to build another military ship, and I say that just because I'm going to be upgrading these systems. And then the question is, do I take Lishval for its science boosts? Do I take Vestalius for its mineral resources? Generally, I think the answer to that is no. Oh yeah, actually, I'll unpack that choice. So I already chose not to take the Nebula Refinery. I don't really need the physics compared to the 6 of other science that I'm going to be getting from Lishval. And it unlocks the Jinkath system, which really only gets me 4 energy. So this will have some value. Right now, it doesn't have a lot of value to me. This does. Okay, the Alien Muro. While conducting surface scans of Shorax 3, Science Officer Durbaxa and crew of the ISS Lorad Kirax discovered what appears to be an artificially carved slab of rock covered in alien writing. They have not detected any other signs of alien activity on the planet, and exactly how this mural came to be here is a mystery. We have prepared a special project to translate the text.
Log updated.
And the translation job... Oh, that's just a science job. So, again, Control-Shift, and that goes to the top of the queue. Okay, but yeah, we've got a science ship on its way to do its first archaeology mission. We've got a slowly growing fleet. We've got double digits for all of our basic resources, and we are eventually on our way to filling out the number of workers in the factory. I do eventually need to decide what I'm going to be doing with the other slots on the ship, but that's a problem to solve for a later time. I think that's going to be it. So if there are no further questions, I will say thank you very much for watching. I would love it if you'd hang around, though, and we can try and find somebody to host, either another Stellaris streamer or somebody who I know puts on a good show and will hopefully keep you company while you watch. Oh, I really like this track. Wow, I lost all of you according to Twitch. Okay. At least according to Twitch... No. I actually think there's more people here than what Twitch is actually reporting. But I do need to find a way of... Okay, actually, first thing I'm going to do is, do I know anybody who's streaming Stellaris? No. Okay. So the possibility I need to allow is that people have been trying to communicate on chat, and it's not been working out. We do have Night Valian who's currently streaming, so unless somebody would really like to see some more Stellaris right now, I'm actually going to host. I'm gonna host Night Valian, and that's just because I don't always get a chance to do that. For those of you who like my stuff, I will say that I'm going to be doing a vodcast tomorrow, so that's continuing on with the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. And that is with a Caius voice. That is, in fact, my real voice. I don't use a modulator. For those of you who prefer the live stuff, Wednesday, I do believe, is the local game dev meetup, so that is Dirty Rectangles. I will try and host that if I can, but my big goal right now is to try and do an early broadcast. It might only be a couple of hours, but I do think it would be good to try and get some extra Industries of Titan in for that. And then the next full broadcast, without any kind of, time shifting or adjustment, will be Friday. I don't know how close we are to the end of Boyfriend Dungeon, but we've been doing that. And for those of you who prefer Stellaris, obviously 1 week from now. But yeah, until then, thank you very much for watching. Have a good evening, and I will see you in the next one.